Call a meeting to order, the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission, July 11th, 2024. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Fire evacuation. If the fire alarm goes off, any other type of emergency, the exits are to the rear and to my left and your right. Please go down the stairs calmly and get as far away from the building as you can. Mr. Secretary, Mr. Vice Chair, two hats tonight.
Yeah.
Roll call, please.
Okay, Terrence Lynch.
Present.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
John Petronella is absent. Francis Alimo.
Here.
Joseph Muley.
Here.
Kenneth Alinsky is here. Vinnie Grillo.
Here.
Christian D'Antonio.
Here.
Patrick Hooper is absent. Walter Kuzel.
Here.
Okay.
Okay, for tonight, right after roll call here, for the record, we're going to be seating two alternates tonight. Walter Clouseau, Commissioner Clouseau will be seated tonight, and Commissioner D'Antonio will be seated tonight as our alternate members. Approval of the minutes. Minutes of June 27th.
So moved.
I did watch the meeting, for the record. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Any comments, any discussion, any changes, omissions? All in favor, show of hands, please. Vinnie, did you not watch, or are you abstaining?
I'm sorry?
The minutes, are you abstaining from the minutes? Did you watch the minutes, the last meeting?
I did not.
Okay,
I am
'cause
abstaining.
You're abstaining?
I'm abstaining.
You were abstaining?
Yes.
All right, so we have two abstentions, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? Is that correct? I do my math? 6. Okay. 6 in favor and 2 abstentions on the minutes dated the 27th of June, 2024. Town Attorney's Report. We have it in our packet for your review. It appears to be most of the ongoing litigation. And as you can see, some of this goes back some time. I don't think there's anything new. Lori, is there anything new? No, there's not. Right? And there's just what's been going. Any comments on the town attorney's report? Anything? Motion to approve, show of hands, town attorney's report. Walter, do you have something?
No.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Everybody's-
you don't need to approve the town attorney
Okay.
report. Thank you.
Everybody's good with it, though? Okay. That's good. Zoning enforcement officer is Rick here. Do you have anything to tell us from Rick?
Nothing to report.
Is Rick back?
Yes, he's been back.
Oh, good. He's feeling better?
Yes.
Good. Okay. So to the rest of my colleagues, there's nothing for enforcement. Okay, moving on. Public participation, number 7. This part of the agenda, we allow the public to come up and speak on any issues you may have or questions with the zoning department or our commission, so long as it doesn't pertain to anything that's on tonight's agenda. So if anybody would like to come up and ask any questions, we're open to listen. For the second time, public participation. I don't see any the third time. Okay, I'm going to close number 7, public participation. Bond releases. We have any bond releases? Staff, is there anything? I didn't
No
see
bond
anything in the packet?
releases.
Nothing?
Nope.
Okay. Administrative approvals.
None this evening.
Okay. We are moving right along. We went through 9 things already. Beautiful.
Nice.
Yeah. I think that momentum's going to stop pretty soon.
Let's keep rolling.
Director of Planning report. Lori, please, if you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
I would like to introduce our new assistant planner, Stephen Heine.
Stephen, I'm sorry, your last name?
Stephen Heine,
Stephen?
and
Right.
he started this Monday. He's still here. And he's doing great. He's going to be a great asset to the town and the department.
Welcome to Enfield.
I don't know, you want to just give a quick
Sure.
blurb?
Floor is
Where are
yours.
you from?
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming here tonight. Like she said, my name is Stephen Heine. I just recently graduated from SUNY Albany with my master's in urban and regional planning, and I'll be taking over inland wetlands, and I'm excited to be working with you all.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Yay.
Welcome to town.
Georgie's clapping.
So he will be essentially taking Georgie's last position, and Georgie will be moving up to the zoning where, taking over from Matt.
So she'll be the assistant planner.
Right.
And you'll be the wetlands agent.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. We have a full staff, and let's keep it that way. Well, it's good if he's starting, and this is a good month to start because
It
there's not
is.
much activity in August, so we won't
Right.
kill you.
But he's already answering questions, so it's awesome. So we're really, really
Oh,
jazzed to have
welcome
him
to
as
town.
part of our team.
Laura, anything else under your report?
That's really it for now.
What I wanted to ask, is there an update on progress? I know I mentioned, well, it might be a month ago, my last meeting, the Raising Cane, the chicken place, I brought it up. We have a dumpster that's
Yep.
25 feet from the road that's not screened.
The vi-
Outdoor refrigeration, it looks like a violation of their
Right,
permit.
the violations have gone out, so
Okay.
they just have to take their time until it could be brought up to another level.
Well, can they come back and revise their application? I mean, I don't know if they
Well,
have
they're-
excess parking, or they need to come back to us, or?
If that's what they need, but they're not allowed to have these things on the site. But,
No,
well,
under
actually,
their
they're
current
off-site.
permit, they don't, under their current permit, not at all.
Right, yeah.
Okay. All right, so
No,
it's working its way
Rick
through
is
the process.
working on it.
Beautiful, thank you for that.
The notices
Appreciate it.
have gone out.
And you know, and why, I noticed today, another issue, I noticed when I looked at those, I happened to look across the street at the new sushi place. Nobody's taking care of the grass there. It looks like it's getting a little blighted. And it looks like that place is nothing, it's any activity in the last week or two either there.
They're actively working on it. They're trying to get ready to open soon, so we'll keep an eye on the property.
Yeah, could you have them clean it up a little bit?
Yeah.
All right, great, thank you. All right, Lori, that's it? Okay.
That's it,
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you very much. Outside correspondence. Any outside correspondence? Nobody has anything? Okay. Commissioners' correspondence. What do you guys have? What do you guys and ladies have? Anything? Nothing? Mr. D'Antonio, nothing? Oh, yeah, that's coming up. Yeah, that's next. Okay. I have nothing. So at this time, under our commissioners' correspondence, I would like to introduce, and I have the pleasure to introduce our planning consultant, Dr. Don Poland, I believe. I don't see the DR here or the whatever, but I think it's Doctor. Welcome. Mr. Poland is going to, I think, give us a little overview on what we're going to be doing going forward. But the floor is yours.
Excellent. Thank you, Chairman. For the record, my name is Donald Poland. I'm with the firm of Goman York Property Advisors, and we are your consultants assisting you with your zoning regulation update. This has been a long-going project, kind of stalled there for a bit, but we're happy to get back to it.
Could we just keep the chatter down in the audience, please? Just a little background noise, Mr. Poland. I appreciate it. Thank you. Mr. Poland, please continue.
Thanks. And so I wanted to take a few minutes this evening just to, I see there's some new faces here, some faces I recognize. I wanted to provide a little overview of where in the process we are, and then talk a little bit about what still needs to be done to the regulations, and then talk a little bit about how to move forward. And I'll try and move this along as quickly as possible.
I wanted you to be up front on the agenda, up high, so
No, I appreciate that.
Could have kept you till 11 o'clock.
I can't tell you how many clients do that. So,
It's all about you.
thanks. So, we started on this a few years ago, and then the POCD took priority, and then a whole bunch of other things intervened, and now we're back to it. We had actually made some substantial progress through the regulations in the sense that we had what I would call a very rough first working draft. That is, we did updates and improvements to the front end of the document, things like the introduction, the powers and authorities, the interpretation definition section. That being said, there are still definitions that need to be revisited and addressed. We also did a substantial amount of work on the residential and commercial zoning districts in the context of uses, the uses that are allowed, and how they're allowed through which permitting processes. I believe Lori had sent you guys a number of documents from that early work. One of them kind of provided an overview of the use changes. To be honest with you, in the context of single-family residential districts, very little changed. But in the context of commercial industrial districts, there were substantial revisions that were made. In addition, and Lori, I found this since you and I last talked. I had never incorporated it into the working document, but I had completed work on the development standards chapter, including, to my amazement, signs. I can't believe I actually tackled that, but I tackled signs. The reason why I say that is A, signs are always controversial, and B, you guys had some very complex sign regulations. But from my perspective on doing an update to zoning regs, the development standards section, which is your parking, your signage, all that site design criteria related to site plans, is a really large lift. It's a large portion of the work that goes into an update to the regulations. So in the end, I ultimately feel that we have made good progress on this document. Now, one thing I need to do is do a reread of the document and get you guys a revised copy, the working draft copy, so you can see the changes that have been made. And everything's in, if you're familiar with Word, it's in track changes. So things that are new are underlined in colored text, and things that are deleted are struck through, so you can actually see the changes. You don't have to flip back and forth between documents. But we'll get you that document for you guys to start familiarizing yourself with, so that you know what has changed. Moving forward, I know we still need to do some work on definitions. We still need to do probably a substantial amount of work on the special regulations section of the document. That's where you have all your special provisions related to certain kinds of uses and so forth. And then I also know that we have a long laundry list of staff identified issues with the document. Things that, on the day-to-day utilization of the regulations, they realize that there's conflicts, there's things that are not working. I believe in the Thompsonville section, we have some nonconformities to address and so forth. And then we also need to revisit the POCD in the context of what were those recommendations here. And last, I also know the chairman has some things that we had discussed that you'd like to address. So we still have a fair amount of work to do on this document. I'll pause there before I get into kind of a little bit of maybe schedule going forward. One, I'll kick it back to the chair if you have anything you want to interject. And number two, just at this point, if anyone wants to ask me any questions about where we are at this point, I'm more than willing to answer those.
Very good. Thank you for that. So some of the things that we talked about,
Yes.
I brought up, to everybody here through a set of goals. and we all voted on it and thought that was the direction we go in. And not all the goals have to do with what you're doing. But let's just back up. Did you say the housing stayed the same? Is that relative to R33 and 44 and 88 and all that?
So two parts to that answer. Relative to uses, we didn't change uses in the residential zones. So, primarily single-family residential. There may be churches and those other things. We didn't make changes there. So that's one thing. Number two, as far as any of those bulk and area requirements where we know we have some districts that have some issues, they were initially zoned one thing, the zoning was changed, and now there's nonconformities, there's challenges with accessory structures and so forth. All of that was put on hold until we got through the POCD process. So that is still open for revisiting. We just hadn't gotten to it yet.
As far as lot sizes?
Correct. Lot sizes, setbacks, and so forth.
Right, because some of the things that we talked about and the goals and we agreed on, we want to make sure that we have a balanced development going forward. We don't want to have all the tax burden placed on the residents. So I think that's a problem here in Enfield now, and I want to get your professional guidance on that to make sure that as we go forward, all the tax obligations aren't going to be shifted more to the residents. And I'm sure you probably hear that, throughout a lot of your
Not the first time.
yeah. And then on the housing, we talked about not affordable housing, but housing that's affordable. And that's where I'm getting back to the lot sizes.
Yep.
I mean, nobody wants big lots anymore, 88, 44, even 33. We have to really take a look at that. And I'm hearing it, and you hear it on a national level, but it's a state and Enfield level, national level, there's a housing crisis. There's not enough houses, and you probably have the numbers. And we have areas of town that, in order to develop it at R44, the developer, it's not going to happen. It's too much money, or the houses are too big, it's too much, doesn't cost too much. So one of my goals is to get them lot sizes down. So our elderly can stay as they downsize, stay in a community, and our younger people, as they want to buy houses, could then buy a house. Now, the way things are, if somebody's going to build an R33, the house is going to be $400,000.
Yep.
So that's my goal when we talked about getting rid of all those big square footage zones.
Yep.
And like I said, we talked about all this. And when I took chair, I came up with the goals that I thought that would be good. Downtown, one of the things that I brought up, and we talked about that, there's been several studies, Thompsonville specifically, several studies over the last 40 years, and the result is a net zero. We have a new firehouse and a new bridge, and nothing's changed. So I would like to explore getting rid of all the height requirements and let the free market decide what to do with height. And we always have the issue of parking. So if we let people go high enough to make enough money, they can build parking structures within, subterranean or above, and on smaller or whatever size footprints, and be able to combine. In other words, a developer can buy a whole street without any red tape. And again, let the free market decide. People don't have to sell. If they want to sell, they can sell. But I'm frustrated with the zero that's happened down there in 45 years. And it's just leaving it the way it is. It isn't going to change. So, and especially along the riverfront. The riverfront, we have to let people build and develop high. And I think that's the only way anybody's going to, because first of all, a developer has to make money. And we have to ease the regulations. And I think nationally, it's a push now to ease zoning regulations. There's too much burden on developments, housing, commercial. And again, you're the professional, and tell me if I'm wrong or if I'm halfway right, or if you can elaborate on some of that. We need to be, this has got to be for the ages. When we do this, it's got to be for the ages. We can't keep things stagnant the way they are. And again, I don't think people want big houses anymore. There's not big families. Times have changed. Again, the downtown area has been that way since I can remember. I'm 65 years old. Nothing's changed, other than redevelopment tore our buildings down. But that was some of the goals we talked about.
Yep.
And we, as a consensus, we all kind of agreed. So from your background and your doctoring in this, is some of the issues out there that I talked about, houses, the lot sizes, letting people go up instead of out?
Definitely. I mean, all these, at the end of the day, as you said, there is a housing crisis in this country for a number of reasons, some good and some bad. But we, for decades now, haven't produced enough housing to keep up with the demand of housing, and it's really fallen behind. In addition, there's been a shift in the housing market. Part of that shift, there's been a shift away, a shift more towards the middle, where we previously, if you go from kind of 1990s, 2000s, most of what was built was single-family, residential, large lot. And two shifts have changed. One is a shift back towards more modest-size lots, and the other is a shift towards multifamily. And therefore, we're seeing a more balanced market in what's being built right now. About 45% of what's being built across the state is multifamily. About 55% is single family in various forms, but you're not seeing, except for maybe in the wealthiest communities and so forth, you're not seeing that large lot stuff like we did previously. Pretty much to varying degrees, everything you said has truths to it. There is a move towards, in the context of, you talked about height, I would phrase it in the context of, it includes height, but it's about density, allowing greater density to occur, and especially in the context of redevelopment of an existing area, acquisition of property, of existing developed property is expensive compared to raw land. Therefore, there needs to be a way to offset that cost, and the way to offset that cost is density on the other end. Acquire 3 properties and get 10 units, just to say, I'm just throwing out rough numbers. I don't know what those exact numbers would be. They're just hypotheticals. But it's that ability to achieve greater density that provides the ability to overcome those high costs on the front end. So essentially, in the context of Thompsonville and what you were just saying, yeah, those ideas are heading down the right path. What I need to now do, and what I started talking with Lori about a bit, is figure out how do we best do this from a regulatory standpoint. And the same is true out in your single-family, larger lot zones. I don't think you want to do a wholesale upset the apple cart, take a 2-acre zone and turn it into a 1/4-acre zone. But there's things we can do to allow a more modest lot to be constructed within.
Well, that's what I was going to
such a
lean on
zone.
you for. Is it 100 by 100? Is it 100 by 75?
Right.
I don't know. I know down here is all 50 by 100. So
Right.
I would look to you
Right.
on that.
Right. And we're going to have to essentially, we're primarily me with some help from staff because they are more locally knowledgeable than I am. Take a look at those zoning districts, take a look what's out there currently, what's available in the context of land, and then figure out what is, zone by zone, kind of what is the ideal or acceptable or marketable, however you want to use it, lot size to consider. And
then with that, how and the regulations from our level, what goes with that is this is going to be pristine. It has to be the sidewalks, the underground utilities, tree planting. It's not just going to be throwing
Yep.
up small houses.
Yep.
It has to be very nice.
Yep. Understood.
City water, city sewer.
Understood.
So, that house has to be plugged into
Yeah.
how we're going to do this. Has to be beautiful.
It would be the same degree of standards that you currently have within that existing zone, but at a different, lot size and density.
So we're on the same
Yes.
page there.
Definitely. So, anything else before?
So getting back to the Thompsonville area, what I was saying about height and let the market determine. everybody says you can't go too high. I mean, the fire trucks can't reach it. That's a myth, because they don't need to reach it. High-rise firefighting is all done from inside, 90% of it.
Yep.
So we always get pushed back with that. I mean, the height, you can't do it. It's too high.
Right.
Is it mid-rise? Is it 20? What's mid-rise? 10, 15, 20?
I think, once again, it's like the lot sizes. We need to look at what's existing here and what's feasible. It's not just about what you can build to. And I agree with you. Going up is going to provide you the greatest density. There are certain challenges in going up on the developer side. 3 stories, 4 stories, 5 stories. They can use a combination of wood and steel construction. Once you get up over 5, 6 stories, then you're talking steel construction. The higher you go up, then numbers of elevators and so forth. So there's a cost with kind of every floor that's added to a building.
Well, that's what I was saying along with the parking. There has to be enough rental space to cover the parking.
Yep.
So if you tell a guy you can only build 5 stories, then we're back to the no parking again.
Right, and structured parking is costly. In building a parking lot, you're probably looking at about $3,000 to $5,000 a parking space on a surface lot. The U.S. average right now for a structured parking space is around $32,000, and it goes as high as $50,000 depending on where. So once again, that becomes, the challenge is how do you provide the density? How high can you go? How much parking can you yield?
Sky's the limit.
Well, no, parking's actually the limit. It's kind of funny with a lot of communities when I work on these things. They fear allowing too many units per acre. Like, we only want to allow 6. And I'm saying, well, you really need to think about 12. And they're like, no. And the fact is, it's usually the parking that controls the units. Right. Not the unit provision, because there's a finite amount of space on a lot, and you have to be able to accommodate the building and then the parking. And the parking always takes up more surface area than the building.
But what about when the parking is incorporated, subterranean or elevated?
It still is a defining factor of the density at the end of the day, because if you're going structured, every floor of the structure is costing you a lot more money, and therefore it's being balanced against the units.
Well,
So
again, that's back where we have to allow the density, so the
Right.
person can build enough
Right.
apartments for income to offset,
Right.
not offset the parking, but make it feasible.
Right. So back to my first statement, we need to take a look at some of that and see what do we think is viable, feasible, plausible, and acceptable within the context of the community here. And we'll come back to you with that.
And we talked about the POCD, and part of that, and has been, even the last one, is connecting Thompsonville to the mall area.
Yep.
To 91. And, so
Yep.
what I'm talking about is, all of that.
Yep.
We have the train station coming, so this is for, like I said, for the ages. We have to take a different look here.
Yep.
Public transportation to and from the mall area. As you've probably seen in the media, on the news, we do have good discussions going on with the current owner and a possible developer of the mall.
I've seen that.
They did a presentation. That's right. I think I seen you quote in one of the newspapers,
Yeah, I got it.
magazine or something.
Yeah. It was totally unrelated. The reporter didn't even know I was doing work here. And
Yeah.
called me and asked me my thoughts. So.
So that's good. We got the right guy helping us. So all of that's happening.
Yep.
The state did a traffic study on Elm Street,
Yep.
190, Palumbo, Freshwater. So we have all that stuff. I mean, I think that it's time to strike.
Yep.
That's what I'm saying. If everything comes together here,
Yep.
I'd like to see the town move forward and again, make it affordable for our elderly, for our kids. When they, we don't want everybody, all the kids to graduate. Geez, I got to leave. I can't even afford to live in the town I grew up in.
Yep.
And then the elderly people, if they downsize, they can't. There's nowhere for them to go.
Yep.
So all of that. And I'm going to open it up to the rest of the board. Any questions for Dr. Polo? Please, Linda.
I have a simple question tonight.
Sure.
You talked about a timeline for a draft. Do you have any idea?
Yeah.
Because we've already got like 55 pages, which I have gone through.
Yeah, we know you did.
Good.
But just ideas of when we'll see.
So I was actually going to speak about that next. If you just want to
Okay,
hold
fine.
that question, I will
Good with
answer
that.
it.
All right,
Cool.
that was my only question. Thanks.
Great. Thanks.
Sure. Please, Commissioner Alinsky.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, I was thinking about the process today going forward when I went through all your materials over the past week or so. And I guess from my standpoint, I think we should revisit the goals and just look at them, because frankly, I don't remember what all of them are, because we haven't revisited them in a while. So I believe we should just start with that. Not that we're going to make changes or anything, but I think we need to familiarize ourselves now that we're really getting into it. Also, I think going forward, the way we should do it, and I'm just making recommendations here, discuss the changes and then agree zone by zone. Or even subject by, like you mentioned, signage. Maybe
Yep.
signage is one grouping that we just attack
Yep.
in one thing. And maybe it's a series of special meetings, I don't know.
Yep.
And I know special meetings, but
August,
it's,
that's-
maybe not be August. Anyway, the other idea I had is, it might be a good idea to have an advisory committee of citizens to review what we're proposing ahead of time, or as we're going along, as we're discussing changes, to assess, and that would help us assess the public opinion on the changes we're contemplating, okay? And I'm not talking about a 20-person committee. I was a facilitator years ago in industry, and an ideal committee size is like 6 or 7 people. It's not 20. And so we might want to consider appointing an advisory committee to kind of help out with that, judge what the community is thinking, and so on. And then I think perhaps we would present to the public via some forums at some point. Here's what we're thinking on changing regulations. Then I assume we would then vote on the regulation changes at some point.
I thought we were going to have a couple public hearings. Did we talk about that?
Yeah, I just mentioned, yeah, I'm going into,
Okay, yeah.
and we do that in public hearings. So it could either be a discussion forum, or maybe it's just a couple of public hearings.
Well, just to clarify, any change to the zoning regulations will require a public hearing.
Okay,
So we may do it in sections, we may do the whole thing, but just so you know, any change will require a public hearing.
okay. Can we do an informal thing, like a forum?
We could have informal discussions, but
Okay.
any actual change will require a public hearing and a notice.
Yeah, sure. Okay. And then, do we have to present then to the council after we're all done?
No.
Okay, so we have the full authority over that then. Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, or evening, whatever it is. The one question I have and one concern I have is we have so many places in town that are mostly non-conforming uses. Right? So no matter what we do, how are we going to make sure that these places are no longer non-conforming? Or what do we have to do to take care of that? And we had a meeting not too long ago that we had to approve more non-conformance to non-conforming uses because people wanted to do something. And what they wanted to do was perfectly normal, good things. But how are we going to get away with that? And the other thing, and just one more question, then I'll keep my mouth shut. Do we have any idea of what the plan is for time frame to be complete? Okay? And we keep saying, okay, it's been going on for years, we've been doing this, we've been doing that. Okay, do we have a time frame that we're going to say, okay, if we do this, we can be complete by this?
I will answer that
Thank you.
tonight.
Anybody else? Sure. Mr. D'Antonio.
Yep, through the chair to Mr. Poland. I know your role has kind of shifted over time as you worked with us through the POCD, and now we're talking specifically about regulations, but those two are intertwined, right? So we're looking to achieve the goals of the POCD partly through the regulations. But as we all know, regulations are not going to by themselves necessarily spur development or achieve our goals. It's the framework, really. So as you're going through this process, you know, let's say like Thompsonville or the mall area, although the mall area is possibly somewhat covered, but let's say Thompsonville, you know, are you going to be able to, you know, provide guidance to the town to say, hey, maybe these are some other considerations to go along with the zoning regulations? Let's say, you know, like the parking, you know, should the town have, you know, parking policies, you know, that fall outside our jurisdiction, but that would mesh with our regulations, you know, for us to, you know, possibly decrease, you know, parking requirements there. So, you know, I'm looking for your take on, again,
Yeah.
regulations, but like adjacent to regulations.
Yeah, I mean, while not specifically a part of the zoning update scope, the fact is, yes, let's say if we're discussing parking, you know, standards in Thompsonville across a variety of uses, I could see, especially if we're talking about density, as you were talking about, I could see parking provisions that allowed, say, a developer, I'm getting to the specifics, would allow, say, a developer to satisfy, you know, the majority of their parking needs on their own site, but also use, say, on-street parking for a percentage of the required. I've written many regulations like that in communities. But then that bleeds into that area of kind of, well, now you're allowing, you know, private development to capture required parking on street. That's not to say it's dedicated to them, just they can use it. But then that gets into the area of, yeah, you probably need to consider some other things related to parking in the Thompsonville area in order to address that. So yes, where it relates with the work that we're doing, I would at least make those recommendations or note to you guys that, you know, you need to further discuss this or what have you. So,
Great, much
Oh.
appreciated.
thanks.
Exactly what.
Mr. Poland, we went through an exercise with an application, a new development, mixed use, it wasn't gonna be mixed use, then it wasn't, but parking was the big deal. It was just a very stressful process. And, you know, I'm not sure where it is right now, but it was parking, and it was about the on-street parking. Like you said, sharing the parking. It became a big part of the whole deal, and Lori can tell you all about it, and what happened there. Yeah. So, I mean, it's important. The parking thing, you know, I'm glad you raised it, because we have to figure it out. We have to figure it out, because when that was built down there, it was built before people had cars.
Yep.
Never mind when people only had one car to a family. It
Yep.
wasn't designed for, I mean, the infrastructure in the streets that we don't see, I know the infrastructure is good relative to water and power, sewerage. I know it's all good, it's all there.
Yep.
But the streets, the widths, the design, it wasn't made for today.
And that gets to Mr. Lynch's comments, I believe, about nonconformities. You know, zoning wasn't legalized. Zoning doesn't come around until the early 1900s. It's not legalized until the 1920s. And in the context of Connecticut, most communities didn't start adopting it until the 40s, 50s, and
Right,
60s.
yeah.
And if you think about a town like Enfield, especially your villes, the Hazardvilles, the Thompsonvilles, those old villages and boroughs, they developed well before zoning existed. And to be honest with you, zoning doesn't work well, hasn't always worked well in places that developed before it. Zoning works really well out on those green fields, out on the raw farmland, that, you know, you have a fresh slate. And so the non-conforming uses, one of the foundational intents of zoning is to eliminate non-conformities. But they are protected. Therefore, they will forever exist and they will forever be a challenge. We will be revisiting the nonconformity provisions of your regs, and we will be addressing some specifically that we can reduce. But it's the non-conforming, while we can do some stuff around the bulk and area requirements, requirements, setbacks, even things like parking standards, the uses become the greatest challenge, and they will persist. We'll try and improve them to some degree, but they're constantly a challenge. But it comes back to just, in already developed areas, zoning can be very challenging, and it's as you can see, it's challenging enough here. Just be thankful that you're not a core city, a place like Hartford, where just 90% of Hartford developed pre-zoning, and it's just really hard at times. But we'll work through.
And that's our challenge. What you said, everything was built, late 1700s, some of the stuff down there.
Yep. Yep.
And it's just not going to work anymore.
Yep.
And maybe we're putting burdens on the landlords. They can't make a profit right now. I don't know.
Yep.
It's a big question, and we have to get it right.
Yep. And I think we need to.
I just wanted to ask one thing on
Sure.
the suggestion from Commissioner Alinsky of a focus group. How
Yep.
would you suggest on fitting that in? I understand what he's saying. I just don't know how that comes
Right.
into the process.
One is I will leave the decision of that to you guys. Two, I'll have to give a little thought about how to work that in. So I'm going to talk next about schedule, and then if I could get back to you on how we would work that into the process. Just kind of caught me off guard there. So no, that's all right.
There's a process within the town. I don't know if they
Right.
have to be appointed by the council to us, or
Yeah, so-
I'm not sure how all that would work. And
That's an internal process.
exactly, but it's time. It's time consuming, and
Right.
it's.
Yeah.
I don't know, and it's a good idea.
It-
We'd at least have to have public participation.
Yeah.
But I don't know how that.
Okay. We can
So-
figure it out.
Yeah, I don't know. That's- Please, Linda. You might know.
Just in the past, what we have done is had workshops that were open to the public, and actually they were really beneficial because the people that would show up, we would have the presentation, we'd discuss it, and then the public was right there, and it was more of a back and forth. And it really was successful, especially when we did the Thompsonville regs, which we did just before COVID. And it was really beneficial that way because they were right there. It was more of a flow as opposed to public hearing. This is what we're doing, then we get the feedback, and then there's the changes. So it's something that we can think about. Okay?
No, please, we got to get it right.
Yeah, I think that would be good. I mean, the whole idea is to get some public, have a forum to get some public feedback about what we're doing. And actually, maybe the workshops might work a little better because different people will show up at different
Yeah,
times.
and that was
you'll
yeah.
get more opinions, I think.
Right, because if you're talking about the industrial area, the people that are involved in that
Sure.
are going to show up. If we're talking about Thompsonville, the people who live in Thompsonville are going to
sure,
show up.
sure.
So it
Yeah,
has
something like that
so,
might be good.
yeah, just a thought.
Okay.
And again, there's the final public hearing.
Right.
And we'll figure out whether we're going to do that in pieces, or,
Yeah.
I mentioned to you how we have the 5 fire districts that the town was built around.
Yep.
We could look at the districts geographically. They have a stake in this, too.
Yep.
You know, They have to collect revenue, and maybe their residents come in and say what they would like to say. I don't know.
Yep.
But we could break it into 5 districts. But they have a stake, the districts do as well.
Yep.
They get their revenue from taxes.
Yep, and I'm flexible as to how we do this. I like the interactive work sessions as an idea. I think maybe a little better than the committee. You guys are a committee of the public to begin with, and then paring you down to then 6 volunteers, let's say, of another committee, it just feels redundant. But designing some work sessions that are aimed at engaging residents around either specific areas or specific themes seems a bit more dynamic and interesting to me. So,
We'll just have to, Lori, and you guys can figure out
Yeah.
relative to, like, through the town attorney, do we need to post these?
Yep.
Are there any public meetings? All that stuff has to be
Yeah.
ironed out.
Yeah.
Because we're meeting, I don't know if it's a quorum, I don't know about that stuff.
we'll take care
Yeah.
of all that. You
Yeah.
don't have to worry about any of that.
Got a couple of lawyers sitting right behind you, probably.
No, not him. No. Kidding. So,
So yeah, that would be, we need to,
see, I used to be planner in East Windsor, so my relationship with Paul goes all the way back.
Bet you
to
that guy
years
behind him
ago
even
in
more.
East Windsor. So, no, it's actually a good relationship. So,
yeah.
No.
But that's, so there's no, that's why there's no hiccups, so we can do this thing
Yep.
correctly.
Yeah.
So let me segue into schedule and how we proceed with this. I'd like to do kind of two key things. One is I'd like to say goodbye to you guys tonight and say that I'm not going to be back to see you until October. And the reason why I want to do that is I want to work with staff to actually finish all the stuff we didn't finish doing. I want to incorporate all of those day-to-day staff stuff. I want to review the POCD for its specific recommendations and incorporate what we can from that.
Excuse me, can I just stop you right there? We talked about this with Lori on statutes and regulations.
Yep.
Can you make it separate list or two lists, whatever, what we can opt out of?
Yep.
Because I know some of the stuff is legislation.
Yep.
A must, and some is not.
Yep.
So I want to make sure we have a clear idea what that is.
Yep. We can do that.
I want to, the state is trying to take over local zoning regulations, so.
Understood. So, to Linda's question, I'd like us to be able to delve in and get a bulk of that minutia done.
Okay.
And that way we truly will have what I'm calling kind of a working first draft. I then, in October, would like to present that to you. And also at that time, I would like to come back to you with some short memos on the specific things we've discussed here tonight. Things like Thompsonville, things like lot sizes, and come back to you guys with specific kind of recommendations on how I think we should proceed, or what I think you guys should consider, and so forth. And I think at that point, we can pull together kind of some themes around the heavy lift items to make changes to the regulations that we could then schedule some workshops, say through late October, November, and maybe into early December, to really kind of pull that stuff together. So ultimate timeline, being realistic, I would like to have a draft ready for consideration early next year, January, February time-ish. And then you're going to have the statutory requirements for the time frame for adoption. But I'd be aiming for, I guess if I had to put a date, let's say January 31st, to have the document buttoned up. But it means we've got a lot of work to do. And that's why I'm asking for this first time period for us to just, me and staff, to just make those changes, get these things where they need to be, and then let's start tackling the issues. I know you guys are busy. That goes back to the newspaper article. You guys have a lot going on. You have busy agendas. I think there's an almost full room behind me with a lot of agenda items. I think we're going to have to consider some special meetings, especially for the workshops, to just simply work on zoning. Because either A, they're all going to get angry. They have to put up with 2 or 3 hours of me up here with you. And I'm going to get angry if you make me sit through all of them
Now
to
you put
work
me in the
with
middle.
you.
I tried.
Right. So that's why I think we have to be realistic that there's going to need to be some special meetings to actually tackle
Absolutely.
these things.
Yeah.
So,
So August is out. We're usually off in August.
right. And that's why it was easy for me to say, let us
I don't
not
know
come
if those
back to
people
October.
behind you are going to make us work in August or not. I mean, who knows? We'll see.
The statutory timelines, you never know.
So,
So.
just one more staff on vacation. Linda maybe sparked something, you mentioned industrial park, just before we let you go. Our industrial park, you're going to look at that, it's part of the zoning, but it's troubling because they say it's all wet, and I don't believe it. It's old wetland maps that determined it. I don't know how we get over that. I don't know if that's in our budget. I talked to Lori about this several times. It's an empty industrial park if you look at it.
Yep.
And now I know there's new ways of mitigating wetlands. We had to, I keep bringing this up, to the Noble gas station. They built a pond. It was a piece of land that was trying to be developed forever, I can remember, forever. Nobody could ever develop it. The guy took it, put a pond around it where people can walk around, sit out. It's a passive area, public area. There's new ways of doing things now. And it's a shame that our industrial park sits there empty.
We identified it in the POCD as, I think it was called the target investment area. You and I will have to talk and refresh my memory. I know we talked about wetlands there. I know you've got some older
1960s,
buildings.
so I understand.
Yeah. We can revisit it and kind of see. I just need to refresh my memory. I
Please do.
don't remember the
and
specifics.
look at and think about going up there too.
Yep.
If there's so many wetlands, we'll go up. We won't use the. There's got to be
Right.
a way.
Right.
It can't be empty.
Right.
And again, that helps the homeowner if we get,
Yep.
industrial buildings in there,
Yep.
paying the taxes.
Yep. So.
Staff, does have anything else? We're going to cut Don loose and, right? Has anybody else have anything?
We had discussed this earlier in previous meetings, and as Don said, we're gonna try to do the yeoman's work.
Yep.
And then you could, wordsmith it as you please once you have something to work off of, rather than you trying to figure out the wording and stuff. So I think that's probably the best method, and we'll definitely need to do some workshops, especially on some critical issues, things that are going to be controversial. And I think Don's time frame is probably as realistic as it can be.
It's government work.
Well, yeah. So
goes slow.
it's probably a little plus or minus, but I think that we can truly focus on this at this point and get it done. It's time.
Don, before you go, I really wanted to thank you. I know you were booked last month, and I had a conflict, and I asked Lori to reach out to you to see if you can change it, and I appreciate you accommodating me.
No problem.
It put us behind a month, but
Always flexible, so when I can be. And Linda, if you've already read those 55 pages, if you want, I can instantly get you about 20 more pages.
I was going to think about that, and yes.
Yeah.
But are they
And if
likely to
there's some way you
change?
can send,
Yeah, it's
No,
the
that would
site
even be
development
better.
standards that I hadn't
okay.
incorporated, but if she's going through
Are you
that,
going to share them with us?
I'm going to share them with you too.
Nice.
And but I mean, if she's been going through that detailed and reading them, then I'd love to pass them on to her now. So
Yeah.
Great.
That's fine. That's fine.
right.
Yeah.
thank you, Don, for coming out. Looking
Cool.
forward to working with you.
You too. Thank you. Have a
Great.
good night.
Thank you very much.
Don.
And go easy on Paul.
I'm going to get Carl, not
What
Paul.
about Carl?
We're going to get Carl back there. He's quiet tonight. Looks tired.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, we have Paul first, right? Okay, are we ready to proceed?
July also.
Everybody's ready to go? Okay.
East Windsor.
We don't have no continued public hearings under number 13. And under number 14, PH 3097, 855 Enfield Street, Mr. Secretary, Vice Chair,
Yes.
please, if you would.
Planning and Zoning Commission opens the public hearing number 3097, 855 Enfield Street, and 7, 17, and 21 Elm Street. Application for a special use permit modification for the construction of a new commercial building and a site plan review approval for a veterinary tenant, Triano Properties LLC, and A&L Triano Family LLC, applicant owner, map 26, lot 28 and 29, BL zone.
Gentlemen, good evening. Your name and record, I'll be all right. Your name, address for the record.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Attorney Paul Smith, representing the applicant Troiano Properties LLC. My address is 27 South Main Street, Windsor Locks, Connecticut. To my left is Frank Troiano, who represents and is the principal of Troiano Properties LLC. To my right is Dave Ziyax, Hesketh Associates, who is the professional engineer on this project. So let me start off by saying, Mr. Chairman, from my client's perspective, and I think from the town's, this is a small but fairly exciting project and improvement for the town. Basically, some Elm Street properties are going to be combined with the existing facility. Mouse. And we're going to end up with a roughly new 10,000 square foot building, an additional around 40 additional parking spaces. Mr. Triano has tenants ready and waiting for the property to be built. In fact, let me emphasize, I think at the outset, that he's under a fairly strict timeline to get this done. He has two tenants. One is the veterinary clinic. Excited to have them here. And also it's I was going to say a national physical therapy group that wants to come here. But again, as far as the national group, he's operating under an extremely tight deadline. They expect him to fill his commitments, and they're looking for you to start September, I think, right? For construction to get going. So we're under a pretty tight schedule. So I think it's exciting. I think this is a significant improvement, respectfully, for this area. You have the old houses existing there. They're going to be obviously taken down. And as Dave will more fully explain as we go through the new building, we're putting a lot of effort and have put a lot of effort into the design of the new building to make it sort of that, Main Street kind of colonial sort of design that's much more enhancing to the neighborhood. So if you see the renderings, and I think they are, Dave, in the package, yes. Correct? But, as always, sometimes that happens with these projects. We've learned sort of today, really, I've learned today, that there's a lingering issue in question that the commission is going to have to wrestle with. So let's talk about that up front. And in some ways, it's small, but in some ways it's also large because my client faces extremely tight conditional requirements from his prospective tenant. So the issue, and staff raised it in their most recent report, and it really relates to that second paragraph. And basically the question is, can we modify the the front yard setback requirements? The way Dave designed this, and we went through the ART, of course. We went through wetlands with it, I think, Dave, right? Is, again, if you look at the rendering, it's a really lovely colonial building. It's set back further from Elm Street than the existing houses, of course. But it's setback, we're looking for a setback allowance, which is a little different than the BL zone. BL is the new zone we imposed upon this property when Mr. Triano came in and did a rezoning. And so the question is, can you apply this setback to this development? And staff has indicated there's some question about whether, and now we're talking the sort of overlay zone versus the BL zone, right? Staff has indicated, well, we've looked at this and we got the sort of map from them today, and they're like, well, we don't see that the two parcels that are being merged in are within the overlay zone, right? That they're outside the zone. And frankly, I haven't been able to really, and I don't think Dave and I have really been able to fully explore that issue in and of itself, and let me explain why. If you looked at the zoning map for the town, which is it's the Bible, right? I mean, you look at the zoning map, and is it in the overlay or is it not in the overlay? I really, just looking at it, can't tell. I mean, at least I can't tell from looking at the one that you guys have online. And I know staff has provided sort of a blown-up version, but I don't know what that really is. But our position, frankly, is this. this piece is going to combine. To a certain degree, when you have combined properties like this, you allow overlappage of the zones. There would be at least some of this property, by virtue of your regulations, to be allowed to be in the overlay zone, even if it were not on these pieces. And because of that, I think the commission has the capacity to modify the frontage in the way we want you to, which is to reduce the BL frontage to whatever the plan says. I don't know, what's the change, Dave? It's 10 feet or 9.5 feet. It's 35 to 25. If the commission doesn't sort of exercise, I think, its discretion and allow that, my client faces two extremely difficult choices. One is to try to reduce the square footage of the 10,000 square foot building, to shrink it so you gain 10 feet of front yard, which frankly doesn't make very much sense. And Dave's concern from an engineering standpoint is it opens a Pandora's box in terms of parking and some other stuff. So we don't know what the outcome of that is. My client is under sort of a very tight deadline. The position I've suggested respectfully to the commission is that you can allow this piece as it merges with the next door piece, right, which is already in that overlay zone, that some of that allowance to vary encroaches in under your regulations into these pieces, and you can then vary the front yard requirement by that 10 feet that we need in order to make this work. And having said all of this, this isn't a significant waiver, as I've said, and it's not significant for a number of reasons. One is the existing structures are actually closer to the road than what we're building. Number two, if you looked at this as an overall, our building would then line up, I think, Dave, with the existing facility to the left, or to the bank building, everything to the west, right?
That was going to be my question. One of my questions. How does it line up with the bank and the doctor's building?
Right, we're making
Is it
it-
the same straight line?
Exactly.
So taking down the old buildings, it'll look like it's uniformed?
Exactly. We create that, you want to create that.
I
sort
just
of
wanted to get that
uniform-
picture in my head.
Yeah.
How do you? Okay,
Right.
good. Continue. I didn't want.
So if we're required to push it back 10 feet, it becomes, and I think we have the architect here, he would tell you that it becomes a less sort of, nice plan in terms of schematic, right? Because now you've got this up front and this one pushed back.
I heard you say before we get it on the record. You do have a wetlands permit. You went through wetlands, right?
And we did, yes.
So, if it gets pushed back, what does that do to that wetlands permit? What
I
mean,
haven't looked at that.
Excuse me?
I guess we're not probably,
is it going to put you in it, or is it?
we're not going to be able to like physically think about it this way and push the building back. What we're going to have to do is shrink
it?
the building.
Okay, gotcha.
That's not a good outcome, frankly. And it also leads us, it'll leave Dave to have to revisit whether there's other moving parts to this, right? That might become difficult to resolve. And, sometimes when this happens, you're not happy about it, but you you go forward and you say, well, it'll take us 3 or 4 months, but we'll work through it, and, we'll get to something, right, that works. I don't have, unfortunately, with this one, Frank doesn't, he can explain it, but the luxury of that kind of time. as I said, we're facing some difficult deadlines. So that's the difficult thing, and so I don't know if I've explained it completely, but let's have a dialogue on it. I mean, there is, let me emphasize, if you look at the building we're proposing, I think it's a very, very handsome design. It's unique, and it's, by the way, it's a better design that when you're going to get, if you said, no, just do a BL building, okay? Because a BL, just a BL building, we have a lot more leeway in terms of how we're going to engage architecturally, right? We can save money, we can get rid of finials, we can do all kinds of things, we can reduce it down. So we're not looking to do that, obviously, but we're looking to preserve, importantly, what we have. And I'm saying to the commission respectfully, I think it's within your purview to look at this, understand that overlay district does touch into that and does touch into the frontage here now, and that you can give us the setback modification that we want, which isn't great and frankly is an improvement over what there is. And by the way, architecturally works because you're lining up your frontages, your building fronts along that whole area.
So are you saying part of the overlay district goes onto the parcel?
Well, I can't say it does or doesn't.
Who can?
Staff will say it, I guess it doesn't, based on the map that I've looked at today. The problem is I can't take that sort of big blown-up map and look at your zoning map and say it does or doesn't. But the other thing is, whenever you have combined parcels like this, there is a provision that allows some leakage of the districts to overlap, if you will, because obviously you're trying to do a development that's cohesive, right? And what I would say is, I think that all overlap that's allowed is enough to allow you to sort of modify the frontage requirement. And I think that's really, Dave, I don't think we're asking for anything else, are we? That's under
Well, the
that.
side yard buffer, but that's allowed in BL too.
That's allowed in BL, so it's not a, so that's the dilemma. And certainly Dave can, and by the way, this is something that and this maybe is on me, that became critically aware of today because a map was shared. I wasn't part of the ART or the wetlands, you know what I'm saying? And sometimes in those critical phases, this stuff is vetted and resolved, and it wasn't, frankly, in this case. But I think Dave probably could speak more to that also.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dave.
Ziyax, professional engineer with F.A. Hesketh Associates. I just want to go back a little bit in history, too, because I've been involved in this part. This is another one of my jobs. It's 97-223. We've been on this site. So. But we started out with the bank, and that was similar to this. Houses had to be demolished, and then the bank was put there. And then we followed up very quickly with the medical center. And both those developments were done under the overlay district requirements, which really are design, planning, and architectural requirements more so than anything else. They don't really adjust parking. They don't adjust the other coverages and things like that. They really focus on architectural and just general planning, landscaping, and things of that nature. So when Frank approached us with the idea, which has been floating around for a number of years, of adding on one or two of the last remaining lots to the east, this is as far as you can go before you really bang into good, solid residential properties. It's always been the idea that, well, we're going to do, this is going to be another overlay project because the architecture standards are much higher, and we want everything to look the same. We want the landscaping to look the same. We want the parking setbacks the same. We want the lighting to be the same. But one thing we did decide was that we weren't going to be able to go any higher than 1 story on the buildings because we need to taper down. The medical center's 3 stories tall, and while the height that's allowed in the BL zone would let us go higher, we wanted to taper ourselves down so that we match into the residential property to the east. So long story short, it's always been the premise from at least our perspective, and maybe there's some misunderstanding involved here, but it's always been our premise that you would employ the expectations would be that we would employ the overlay standards to this parcel because it's being blended in with the other two. We need each other for zoning, for parking, for coverage, as that's why I put up this master plan. The zoning data table spells out exactly how all this blends together, and all three parcels need to live with each other in order to, to meet the zoning requirements. And other things such as storm drainage and things like that are all interconnected. So this, in my way of looking at it, this is one big same overlay parcel, and it's being developed that way. And as Paul pointed out, it's our position that through the discretionary powers that the commission has, that I don't think it's much of a stretch to say that, that this thing is, because it's being blended for zoning purposes, it should be blended for overlay design purposes as well.
Yeah, and, I'm sorry. I know Dave and the architect are going to do sort of a more full presentation of the actual development, and talk about traffic and all that good stuff. But what I wanted to emphasize on this issue is that I think it's critical of importance to Frank and his ability to develop, that we at least know a pathway here tonight, and maybe we don't have a full resolution, maybe we do, but that, you know what I'm saying, because otherwise we're looking at significant issues, and hopefully we overcome them, but perhaps we don't, which would be horrible.
No, did I read that you're combining or using the stormwater drainage system at the bank and at the medical building? This is going to tie into that? I thought I read.
Yeah, that's
Is
correct.
that what you're saying? You're combining, it's going to be a combination?
Yes.
It's coming together?
Yes.
And the traffic.
When the bank was designed, we put a larger storm drainage system behind the bank with anticipation that there'd be some growth to the east.
Right.
So we're connecting back to that, and then, of course, all the driveways and parking are all interconnected.
Then we did the zone change, the first process.
That's right.
We didn't combine the lots, though,
No,
right?
no, they are still separate lots, yes.
Right.
They're combined for
But infrastructure.
quote-unquote zoning
Right.
purposes.
Right. But for infrastructure-wise, looking at the stormwater,
They're
it's
combined.
going to run through.
Yes. And
And you can only do that because it's your property.
that's right. It's all
You couldn't do that. if
Well,
somebody
you might
else
be
owned
able
the
to get
property.
easements and things like
Right.
that, but, it's easy here.
Right.
And remember, too, the traffic and parking and pedestrian movement on the thing is all combined as a campus.
So you're going to be able to drive from one building, you'll be able to drive from the proposed new building to the medical center to the bank.
Yes. And exit out onto Enfield Street and exit out onto Elm Street, or vice versa.
Right.
No limit, no restrictions.
Right. Do you want Lori to go first? You guys want to?
I just have one quick question.
Good.
So if we approve this and it was done, then we're going to merge all those into one piece of property.
That's up to you. They're merged for zoning purposes.
They're merged for zoning purposes.
Okay.
And I think that's what we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it's been presented.
We changed it.
We
Sorry,
changed them all to be,
Frank Triano Properties, 1408 Enfield
The
Street.
first step.
They're merged basically for zoning purposes. We have not legally made them one entire parcel because we have different tenants and different obligations for each one. So from an ownership perspective, it's the same ownership throughout, but they have separate LLCs. So it just makes it a little bit more complex. But
Okay.
from the zoning purposes, it's all mastered, planned into one. Like David said, they work harmoniously with each other.
Okay.
And just not to belabor that too much, but there's a couple of other things. There's actually two applications here tonight. There's a site plan application that pertains to the new building, because that only needs a site plan application. But it's also a modification to the special use permit for the medical center and the bank, because that's the way, because the bank needs a special permit because it has a drive-through. But because we're all interconnected with each other, it pulls the special permit with it onto a combined parcel. So that's why you have, two applications, one for a modification to the old special permit that ties all these things together and allows us to go through the bank property. And then you have a simple site plan approval for just the new building. And then there's one layer above you guys, and that is OSTA, the Office of State. Right. They're going to tie all these together. So if you guys approve this application the way it is, to take it apart is going to be very difficult to take it apart. And you're not going to be able to take it apart with OSTA anyhow. Once they put a certificate over this whole site, it's there. You're not taking that away. So this is a combined project.
And I think you said that to us when we did the zone change.
Well, yeah, I mean, we
I think-
made representations to you folks that the intent was to blend all this together, both
Right.
architecturally and planning-wise.
Right, because we talked about it being, we talked about it being one. We used the word, and we granted it because it was going to be. So the
Versus
first
standalone.
initial step we took,
Right.
so if we said no, you wouldn't be here the first time. I'm saying what I'm saying? If we said no
That's absolutely correct.
to the zone change, you would not be sitting here.
Correct.
So we started you on your journey to wetlands and
To today.
to today. So Lori, do you want to kick it off and then we'll get to the group here?
Oh, I'd love to. We did look at our ART notes, and there was a reference to the fact that there was the overlay zone. So it was discussed. I don't believe that was discussed as far as seeking the waivers. Statutorily, any change of a zone or a map, including an overlay zone, would require an application and a public hearing. I don't know of any statutes or anything that really allows you to push the zone or an overlay zone over. However, this is going to be making things less nonconforming, and it is going to be a cohesive development. Perhaps I guess there's a debate as to whether or not, the number of parcels that we've counted include or do not include the overlay district. Usually, the zoning map is pretty accurate. POCD definitely is never accurate. It's very generalized. So I'm trying to find a way that you can safely approve this. Perhaps Attorney Smith, if you know of any statute or anything or case law that allows the overlay zone to just kind of bleed with extended development, that might be helpful.
I mean, the only thing I can think of in your regs is, right, you have a section, that allows, if you have a parcel, let's assume for zoning purposes, we're talking about this as a parcel. Oh, sorry. You can't hear me?
No, I can hear you.
Okay.
Other people.
All right, well, no, I just want to make sure you could hear me, though. So.
Recording can't hear you if you don't talk.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I was being facetious. I wasn't serious. It was okay.
It's okay.
But I know there was a section of your regs where, you allow, if there's two districts, on a parcel, that it can extend over into the other district. You know what I'm saying? In other words, yeah, that's, yeah, the 25-foot rule, 3.00.5, page 22. And I know it seems conceptually that's what we're kind of talking about here, right? Like, and you might say arguably, well, it's 100 feet of frontage, you're only extending 25 in. But once you're modifying that frontage, it seems to me it should apply rationally to that piece. And then my other argument about it is we're actually making, if you're changing a parcel that exists, but you're making it more compliant
Only 25.
than what already exists, and I don't know, what are the How much frontage is I mean, how big are those two existing houses? I'm sure that between the two of them, there's 50 feet of frontage.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
a lot of it's state property probably, too.
No, but I'm saying they're right on the road, right? You
Some
know?
of it's state right away, probably.
Right.
though.
We're pushing them back for, there's an argument that you're making it.
Well, you did say they're going to line up with the medical center and the bank.
Right, and you're making them less non-conforming than what is, right?
Well, that's what staff had just said as well.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it seems to me between those two, there should be a level of comfort to say, yeah.
Well, I still have a little bit of feeling, going back to the initial phase of this, us approving your change, when you first came in, all of us
Right.
understanding that you guys were going to build something there.
Yeah.
So I still have a little bit of mixed feelings as a board that we not misled you, or, I mean, I don't know, I feel a little bit, I have mixed feelings about that process, and when you guys did your due diligence and went on to wetlands, and now we have this.
Well, also, Mr. Chairman, I just put on the best you can do with a PDF of your zoning map, and the corner we're talking about is where the cursor is right here on this
Yeah.
drawing. And the question is, how far does this brown line march down, Elm Street?
Excuse me, Dave?
I did give you a map.
Could you blow that up a little bit?
Yeah, I've been trying, I'm
Commissioners, in your documents today is a blown-up map of that zoning area. This is our most recent adopted paper map from 2017, where you can clearly see the distinctions between the
Nope,
boundaries.
Pass it.
Go up a little bit, Dave.
Go back up.
Too far south.
why am I looking?
Stop.
There,
There we
there,
go.
to the left. There you go.
I don't know why that was so difficult.
So there are a number of parcels that are shown. Who knows whether those lot lines are accurate? Maybe some have been merged, some have been divided. We don't know. We were just counting parcels. So I guess there's room for error there. The 3.00.5 lots in more than one district could apply. However, it does restrict it to 25 feet. I think, trying to find it out here, so. I mean-
Commissioner Alinsky.
Yeah, a couple of questions for the applicants. One is, it's basically the two lots that the houses are on.
Right.
We're talking
Right.
about. Are they 50-foot lots
Yeah,
on frontage on the
each
road?
of them are 50-foot frontage, yeah.
Are they 50 by 50s or 50 by
No,
100s?
No, 50 by, they're much deeper.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so it's
50
two
by
50-foot lots we're talking about.
Roughly 225 feet deep.
And I guess my second question would be to the staff that, is the overlay zone defined dimensionally by feet from the corner?
No.
No,
Okay, so it's really just this map?
it's defined by the map.
Okay,
And it's typically, when I've done overlay zones, when I was in East Windsor as well, it was done by parcel, so it was very specific to
So you're actually
parcels.
talking
Now,
about-
I was not here when it was done here, and maybe it was just kind of like, okay, we're going to go 300 feet or something when they
so are we
just
actually talking
defined
about
it.
trying to extend the overlay by 100 feet for the two lots?
Yeah, basically.
And whatever
Yeah.
their
It would be
other
135, give or
dimension is?
take.
What?
135 feet, give or take. The
135
frontage is
feet.
55 and 65.
Yeah.
Not a lot.
So what I find funny here is, when was the overlay district done?
I'm not sure the exact date of when this overlay came into play. However, for clients coming through our permit process, if they're using our online GIS, we only have one overlay on it, which is the Hazardville. We don't have
Yeah.
the Connecticut River, the Lake overlay, or the Enfield King Street overlay.
Not on it.
And we discussed it vaguely in the ART, but we didn't discuss it to the extent during the map amendment to extend that overlay district.
I find it funny that the bank, the medical center made it into the overlay district. And if you
Right.
look across the street to the south, the overlay district is back.
Right, so
to
it
where-
follows the BL zone. So I guess you can make the argument that the BL zone in that area is technically considered part of the Enfield King Street overlay.
You
could
see what I'm
also-
saying, though, where the
yeah,
bank, and
Right.
you see how it goes more east?
Right.
Than it does on the south side of the street?
Yeah.
Well, how did that happen?
Right, and you could also make the argument that they're reducing the existing front yard nonconformity. The current houses sit at 10 feet and 7 feet, so they're putting their building back
Right.
further than what is currently existing. The only issue that I could not find a way around was the way it's worded in our zoning text. Our zoning text is specific, and I could not find a way where the commission would be able to waive that requirement.
What it says in the text?
Yeah, the
But-
requirement. of
But we don't have an
35 feet.
we don't have an exact drawing to look
The
at.
most exact is the paper map, and
Right.
you can see the boundaries, but if you think of it as in when this boundary was adopted, it was following those existing commercial zones down Enfield Street and King Street. You can see that it wraps around the BL, stopping right at the R33.
And that goes back to my point where if you look at the south side of Elm Street on that corner, it takes in the 7-Eleven, CVS, right? And then it stops, but then the bank and the medical center are now in it. So when they drew the line,
Yeah.
if you look down the rest of Enfield Street, and I look to the north, it's pretty consistent with the side that CVS is on. It goes
Yeah.
all the way down.
So
Right.
basically, it follows all the BL districts.
But there was houses where the bank and the medical center is
Right.
now.
And these
So, and it
applicants. Yep, go ahead.
And then it seems like it got extended to the east.
Yeah.
Right, and I mean, the applicants are designing the buildings, they're designing the buildings in conformance with the architecture styles anyways of the Enfield King Street overlay district.
Right.
The problem is the wording. Enfield King Street overlay lets applicants request waivers of certain setbacks, one being the front yard. The issue is that you cannot waive a setback requirement in a normal BL zone unless ZBA grants a variance, or there's a map amendment change for the zone in itself. So that's the main problem there, is the wording.
Or we say, let's say, we think about that this overlay district,
Right, you
Encumbers
can-
this
exactly.
property.
You can make that argument.
well, it
does
looks like it
follow
because it's been
BL.
extended already.
Right. The issue is that when you look at the map amendment, when they applied from changing it from R33 to BL, the overlay was not included in that map amendment.
Yeah, no,
Or
it already changed.
it wasn't discussed.
I mean, it's right there.
Yeah. It seems
we
like
did-
a logical argument.
I mean, on
It's
the
a straight
bright
line.
side,
Exactly.
commissioners.
So, okay, I'm sorry.
On the bright side, you can change your zoning districts as you see fit, through the proper procedures and whatnot. So, I mean, the only issue is the way the text is worded.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you want to continue on, Mr. Zayas, with your presentation?
Mr. Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Go ahead.
can I
No,
just
no,
make a
go
comment?
ahead.
I mean, I wonder if there's any room for us to conditionally approve, because we've approved applications before with the condition that, like, lots will be merged or the district will be changed. So I'm wondering
Right.
if we could kind of take that approach here, just to put us in a clean place to say, to conditionally approve that
It's the overlay district?
the overlay district will be extended. I mean, they would have to come back for that.
Well, we
but at
probably left the word out when we approved it
I
initially.
think that's the issue,
We-
is that,
we just didn't
is that
do
we,
it.
we weren't thinking about the overlay district when
Right.
they came for the
Right.
map.
Again, I kind of feel like it's back onto us that we
Kind
even
of, I
took
think it
that
was-
first step.
I think it was kind of missed.
Yeah, so I don't think we should make it the fault of the applicant. And I think we need to,
Yeah, I agree.
go ahead.
I think you can make the argument that the Enfield King Street overlay does follow the BL zones and therefore would be technically extended.
So we put, because we made it BL.
Yeah.
Could that be a condition, or is that what that would
I
be?
do not, it couldn't be a condition.
It'll be a
Just a reason.
reason. All right, so I would like to, have Mr. Zayat continue with his presentation so the public can see out there in TV land what you're doing. I think if you have a remnant, or, the outside going to look like what's there now, and pretty and brick and all that, so I think it's important to the community to see
Oh, absolutely.
how it's going to look.
Oh, yeah.
I know, the technical stuff that we're going over now.
And I apologize, because normally when you do these, you like to do, you know what I mean? You like to put that best foot forward, which is, but I felt this was significant.
No need to apologize, because I think there was a little bit of a mix-up on our end here, too. And we got today like you got it. I mean,
Right.
so I think the important thing is that people want to see
Right.
what it's going to look like, I think, and we go through it real quick.
And I have the architect up here too also.
Yeah.
Anything else, Mr. Zients, you want to show
I'll
us?
go.
Or
Yeah, sure.
does the board want to see, we want to see what we're going to have there?
Absolutely.
And I think the people in town would like to see.
Absolutely, yeah. Plus, I spent the time to.
We
put
get
the
yelled at,
PowerPoint.
oh, another chicken place, they want to see what's going on.
I went through the bother of making a PowerPoint.
Yeah,
for
I
you.
know, right?
I don't think there's a chicken.
No, I know. So, yeah.
So
Please
again,
continue.
just to clean up the record, my name is Dave Zieks, professional engineer with Hesketh, and we'll just go down through the slides of the PowerPoint here. We saw this one here. This is a recent aerial of the corner of Elm Street and Enfield Street. This was the bank that started this all. Then the medical center that we're all familiar with, and then the two lots. I drew a little orange box around the actual area of the application. This is a master plan that we put into the package. It combines all the parcels and gives you all the zoning breakdown on how all this works, assuming, of course, that it falls within the overlay design district. What we're going to have is we're going to maintain the driveway that exists currently out on Enfield Street. We have a driveway between the bank and closest to the medical center here. And then there's another driveway located here that lets you circulate around through the medical building. And then we're going to propose a driveway cut. We're going to close off the two driveway cuts that are out there for the house. And then this will give you direct access to our little parking lot that's in front of the new building. And provides, we worked out with the fire department, provides good circulation for them to get in and out of the development. This is a blow-up. Is the LA plan. This is actually the subject of the site plan portion of the application. You can see the building. What we did here was we rotated the building 90 degrees to the road. So again, with the idea that the frontage length of this building is comparable to the houses along the roadway. So the impact to Elm Street is actually about what you would, if you were going to build a new house on these two lots, it would be about the same frontage on Elm Street. You enter into the driveway, it's conventional layout. There'll be a landscaped break between the medical center and us. We have all the handicap parking necessary in front of the building. A new dumpster will be constructed way up here in the back, far away from the residential house that abuts us is right down close to the road as the two that are going to be demolished are. And then in the back area here is an open area that is part of the veterinarian clinic part, and they'll describe that a little bit better to you than I can as to what that outdoor function is going to be. This is a colored rendering of the site plan, so you can see the building at almost 9,400 square feet. All the activity is pointed towards the medical center. The only thing that will go on on the east side of the building, the back of the building, is just what's necessary for emergency egress out the back of the building. There's no public access back here. This is the landscape plan. Again, it's a very extensive landscaping plan, but it's designed to blend into the rest of the center. So that's why you'll see there's lots of foundation plantings. Then there's the buffer plantings that are necessary here along the easterly side. So we have heavy planting down here that would abut where the house is. We're proposing to either relocate or replace the white panel fence that's been out there for many years that's located next to the parking lot now. That will come down, and it will either be reused if it's still in good shape, or we may have to completely replace it. But we're going to put a 6-foot-high white panel fence along this property line to really break up the difference between the BL zone and the remaining R33 zone. And we have a substantial amount of landscaping along there, too, to provide that buffer. This is the west facade of the building, and I'm going to stop there because Chris will come in and the architect will describe it, but I just wanted to give you a couple other statistics just so you can see. The sidewalks will be in front of the building. They will be connected to Elm Street, so everything's tied in nice with pedestrian. The sidewalk is all chopped up along the face of Elm Street, so we're going to take all that out and replace it with a fresh sidewalk. The drainage system we talked about a little earlier, that's integrated with the medical building, so there's no new discharge off the property. The Wetlands Commission really appreciated that. The utilities will be coming in off of Elm Street. We're going to hope to reuse some of them that go to the houses now. We're talking to the utility companies about that. We discussed the landscaping. One of the things that we're looking to do, again, on the east side is the landscape buffer for both the BL and the overlay is 35 feet. We're asking for you to reduce that to 25 feet. And the consideration in the zoning regulations, it talks about things that you're supposed to consider when you do that. We think we've done a good job in turning the building 90 degrees, the landscaping and the fencing we're talking about. And actually, this is another situation. The existing house on the last lot, on the east lot, is actually closer to the house, our abutting property, than our new building's going to be. So we're actually moving the building over about 10 to 15 feet further away from those folks than the existing house is now. So we think, in consideration of the 10-foot reduction, that we meet the criteria that is in the regulations that you folks are supposed to consider in your determination. Very quickly about traffic. We've provided copies to your traffic authority, the police department, of the OSTA application that's going to go in once the commission takes action on it. It will combine all the sites together. What our traffic department did an analysis. Worst case scenario, we assumed all 9,400 square feet was going to be like a strip retail that generates the most traffic. But even with that, you're talking about less than a trip per minute in and out of the facility. We expect that the traffic will be about half of what a strip retail, or less than what a strip retail use would be, because we have the vet use and then a personal service. I call it personal services, a PT type of a clinic. And then there's room for one small tenant left. That they just don't generate a lot of traffic. And we all know that the medical center is pretty quiet, because the way medical centers operate today is everybody has very specific appointments. They come and they go. So there's really no peak in a medical center anymore. It's not a walk-in clinic. It's a doctor-driven medical center. So all in all, we don't see where traffic is an issue. Your police department opined on that during the wetlands. In particular, they didn't have any concerns, and we've been working with them on getting the OSTA certificate application prepared. So we don't see where traffic is going to be an issue on Elm Street or on Enfield Street. So maybe at this point we can just have Chris come up and talk about his architectural design.
Sure.
And then I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Thank you.
So my name is Chris Hill with Blue Moon Design out of Bristol, Connecticut. I'm the principal architect. So in keeping with the theme that was previously discussed, the architectural approach was to, in fact, kind of bring all this together as one cohesive development, materially scale. Being that the building is turned 90 degrees, there was the desire to kind of treat there's almost two facades really. There's the Elm Street facade, and then there's the longer facade that kind of respects the larger campus of the other buildings. And the way the building's set up with its multiple tenants, what we did was we created the sidewalk that goes in front. You can see it on the southern elevation there. You can see there's a covered walkway. So this building tends to be a little bit more street, curb pull-in friendly. People get out of their cars. They're able to walk on the covered walkway, which also extends out to Elm Street as well. So. it kind of invites people into the lot, and also keeps that scale as we're transitioning from this larger cohesive development to the residential zone. If you want to go to the colored rendering. One. Yeah, these are the other two facades, that are not, addressing any kind of main entries or they're a little bit less significant. And this is the color rendering, so you can kind of see the material choices. We're utilizing compatible, architecture with both the larger campus piece as well as the neighboring residential district. Using brick not in total, using brick treatments. We got clapboard siding. The gable has some shingle siding. The dormers and the cupolas. Giving it a unique identity by itself, but also we feel compatible with the rest of the buildings. That pretty much sums it up.
So it's been great working with Chris. I'll give him a quick plug. Blue Moon has actually been excellent to work with, very easy to work and fungible in regards to all the changes that we wanted to do. We wanted to break it up. We never really like to have a large roof line. It doesn't work very well with us. It doesn't look architecturally great. But we came back with what we'd said we were going to do a long time ago. We wanted to bring a single-story walk-in, because there's not a lot of places that have a walk-in access. Enfield is missing. It doesn't have a lot of access to this type of a professional space. There's just not a lot out there right now. It's just extremely hard to build and very expensive, obviously, but this really works out really well. We wanted to bring in where it has that transition from the larger 3-story building next door that has the brick accent, has the pillars, to bring it over to the residential section where this is actually lower than the houses next door. It's lower than the houses we're actually taking down, and it's something that we said that we would do. So we just wanted to make sure that we followed through everything that we promised originally in our original discussion for the zone change application. I did want to introduce real quick the tenants that actually are here. We actually have 2 tenants.
We've actually met them before.
You did, and they're so dynamic. We brought them back again because they wanted to talk a little bit, because you do have a specific need that you had a zone change for, you had an application for it, and they'll be the first ones to tell you, and they probably will, that there's just not a lot of veterinarian services in the area right now. So Possum Veterinarian Services is our premier client that's looking at going in the building. They'll be on the north side, and on the far road side is Ivy Rehab. Ivy Rehab is a national PT group. They're coming in for their first location in the region. They are in Suffield for a pediatric. They're actually not in this area right now. But of course, they need to be on the first floor, as does Possum. So this was really the only way to make it work, but bringing this transitional building in and working with Chris has been great. Chris is also familiar with other veterinarian locations, too. He's worked on several other locations in southern Connecticut, in southern New England, actually, overall. But if I can actually have Possum come up for a minute and just to give you a quick overview as to what they're going to be doing. I know it's part of your regulations as well, but I think it would be great for them to explain their own services for you.
We remember them well. It wasn't that long ago. Good evening. Name and address for the record, please.
Yes. I'm Dr. Alexis Suter, and I'm a veterinarian. I live at 27 St. Moritz Circle in Wellington.
Hi, I'm Dr. Courtney Snyder, and my address is 64 Kensington Street, Manchester, Connecticut.
Thank you. Good evening. Welcome.
Hi. So yes, we were here not that long ago.
Wasn't there 3 of you?
There's 4 of us.
Oh, there they are.
Not enough chairs.
All doctors, right?
Yes.
Yeah, wow.
Yep. Yeah,
a lot of doctors tonight. Dr. Poland, 4 doctors. Well, we're important.
You are. No, we're a 4-doctor partnership, private partnership that we developed to try to provide outpatient wellness and urgent care for dogs and cats primarily. We will be doing some exotics of like birds, small mammals, reptiles, no chickens.
Good, thank God. Oh my God. People still on a forum. Too much chicken.
Nope. So, but we're all long-term Connecticut residents who have practiced most or all of our careers, over the last anywhere from 12 to 20 years in Connecticut, serving Connecticut residents with dogs and cats. So Enfield is desperate for veterinary care right now, as any of you guys who have pets probably are aware. You only have 2 part-time veterinarians currently in the city, and a city this size could easily have 10 or 12 well supplied. So we'll be adding, 4 very experienced veterinarians to the town. The office, as we have it designed, is a 5,300 square foot, roughly, facility that will be offering advanced outpatient care. So we're not going to be doing overnight hospitalization. We're not going to be doing boarding or kenneling. We're going to be providing wellness care for preventative care, vaccinations, heartworm care, things like that, sick patient visits, and urgent care that doesn't require hospitalization. Okay. So the office is designed with 10 exam rooms so that we can make sure that we can serve the population appropriately. And then we have a sizable treatment area for diagnostic, workups and other care that patients may need. And that's all in the interior. On the outside, they referenced the kind of fenced off area along the north end. It's going to be 2 separate small fenced-off areas. One of them is for walking dogs that are there hanging out with us for a few hours for workups that need to pee. But the other area is a private outdoor area, kind of a Zen garden type, designed to provide a peaceful place for people to say goodbye to their pets when weather allows. So it's essentially designed for euthanasia to help reduce the stress and so on of having to come into the clinic when we're able
You
to
actually
provide
be
that.
providing that life-ending
Yes.
service?
Yes, that is a very necessary part of veterinary medicine, and it is something that we want to try to make as peaceful for both patient and client.
'Cause I think, from what I understand now, our residents, their pets are going somewhere else.
We're not providing cremation.
Oh, okay.
No, sorry. That's
meant.
a very different thing. Just euthanasia is just the process of assisting
And,
that.
like a hospice for animals.
Yes, correct. Yeah. So, the other thing that's a little bit unique about the office is that all 4 doctors are certified in low stress care. So it's called fear-free certification. And the hospital, the clinic office has been designed to reduce stress for patients. So everything from our flooring choices and soundproofing, even color choices, are all designed to make the building and being there less stressful for our patients and hopefully for their humans as well, because when your pet's sick, it's scary. It's a lot. And we want to try to help people to care for their pets in a way that's, just a little bit easier.
And with that being said, with the design that they've come up with, we have a lot of light in our entryway, which is natural light is always more comforting than fluorescence and things like that. So they really work to give us that extra ability.
I think, if I remember correctly, we approved you for an older building out in Skinnico, right? That's where you were originally going to go?
We didn't have that was the original zoning kind of amendment that was made, was to allow veterinary offices to be in BL.
Yeah.
With the original plan was to be that area, but there were some concerns about the building that are.
Didn't fit.
Yeah.
Well, good.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, but, I guess I would say we hope that you let us come and help take care of the pets in Enfield, because we know it's necessary and we want to help.
Do you take in strays if people find just those?
That's actually tough because there's laws about how that has to be handled, and that would be something we would need to work with animal control on.
Which we have, our police.
Yes, yeah, the Enfield Animal Control is excellent. But there's because we can't hospitalize patients overnight, that's not, that won't be part of our design. It would be something we would need to work closely with animal control to deal with if somebody happens to a Good Samaritan happens to bring in a found patient, a found pet, so.
So emergencies, you said there was some emergency?
We'll be doing urgent care, so think about it like a human urgent care. It's
Right.
if you need to go to the hospital, you got to go to a hospital, and that's not going to be us.
Right.
But if a dog has an ear infection, they have diarrhea, they have they have a hot spot, they cut themselves. Those are all things that we can help to address, and that also will help to take some of the very, very, very heavy workload off of the local ERs that are. Some people are having 8 to 12-hour waits
Wow.
for their pets to get care, and like they're just sitting in the parking lot for that length of time. And if a pet can't breathe or gets hit by a car, that's where they need to be. But if they have something that we can treat as an outpatient, we can take care of that and help let the emergency doctors take care of the true emergencies.
For example, I just had a family member's pet ended up being got bit by a tick.
Yep.
But it had a bad fever, it was sick, and they had to go out of town somewhere. That's something you would provide, kind of service?
That is absolutely a case that we would be
Dog
appropriate
had
to see.
The dog had like 105 temperature or
Yep.
something, yeah, and they found
Yes. And and those can be treated as outpatient, and that would be an appropriate case for us to take care of.
Well, that's good, because I don't think we have that service in town now.
You don't.
Right, my sister-in-law, she had to go out of town, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why that's why we picked Enfield, was because the need was the greatest of Central Connecticut. There was the greatest dearth of veterinary care in Enfield. So.
Any questions? Linda, please.
Just a few. Artificial turf. Why are you choosing artificial turf? And there is a lot of controversy about artificial turf. That's one question. And you have the Zen garden for euthanization of animals, and a lot of people do take their pets home and bury them in the backyard. Yes, I've got them in my backyard, but nobody knows that, okay? But what if they decide not to take them and leave them with you? How are you going to dispose of the remains?
Those are
the two questions.
Yep, those are great questions. With the artificial turf, we have not actually settled on that. That was one option that our architect, we have working with a veterinary-specific architect who's been working with Chris Hill for the design, that they suggest as being a little bit more user-friendly year-round. But we have not settled on doing that. We actually are pretty interested in doing just regular grass. But we did talk about that with the wetlands meeting, that we are aware that there are regulations that would have to be fit, and there's only certain types that could be used if we do go that route, and we would be in compliance with the wetlands regulations. But I think that we have all been leaning towards preferring natural grass, but we just have not firmly settled on that yet. In terms of disposal of remains for patients that are euthanized, we will work with a crematory service. There are several in the area, but there's a couple that we have experience with, and they usually do pick up for us when we have the need.
Would that be on a daily basis or as needed?
It's as needed. Usually,
so they wouldn't have remains staying in the building overnight, I guess the question.
No, we actually will have a freezer for that purpose, which is fairly standard for vet offices, because we can't, if we have to euthanize a patient at 6 o'clock at night, they're not going to come and pick that patient up.
All right.
So.
Thank you.
So, I have a question on the wetlands. Did the approval on the site approve your area?
Yes.
So it's all set?
Yes.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, they did approve it with the condition that any turf that the vet uses has to be environmentally friendly.
So it encompassed, the wetland permit encompassed the
Yes.
use as well?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
We made it a point at the wetlands when we were talking and did the presentation there that we wanted to give it may as opposed to will. And then we actually went back with them a little bit on that because they are concerned about it. Because if there's a lot of snowpack and a lot of snow cover, you can clear things off a lot easier when it's not natural grass.
Right.
And that was one of the questions of how to handle that. We put it in a part of the building which I think would have a little bit of coverage. But again, there's no perfect world, and until we actually know that, we want to have the flexibility, and that was part of the conversation we actually had with them.
Okay, good. I thought the wetland permit was specific to the structure itself, but, and the use tenant
And
as
the
well.
outside, yes.
Okay,
that
that's
was
good
part
to
of the
put on the record.
conversation.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. And for Commissioner DeGray, there is a room, and they already have it designed out for that facility or that treatment for anybody that would need to be picked up later.
Okay.
That's all
No,
part of the design.
I'm just trying to get these questions because
we
people
are-
out there are going to want to know.
I have learned more than I ever thought I would on veterinarian services. They're dynamic to work with. They're extremely knowledgeable, and they right now are working all within the area. And as they have said themselves, but I've noticed myself that there's just a lack of veterinarian services everywhere. To have 4 veterinarians
That's
in
great.
one facility in Enfield, we thought was a wonderful opportunity for not only us because they want to be involved in the Enfield community as well.
We learned a lot when they were here the first time. We learned a lot, like you did when they were here the first time. Vinny, you have something? Commissioner Grillo.
Yeah, I'm sorry, sir.
Oh, go ahead.
They're here in front of us, right, to change the zoning for the fronting of it, not so much the medical, it's,
No, they've received the zone change, and this is for their site plan approval.
right, which has nothing, right, it's for the site plan,
Yeah.
which really has, and no disrespect to you ladies, but we've already spoke with them, they're not here for this.
We're going
We-
to a different place.
Right, we just gotta kinda move on, no? We're not approving them. We know what these ladies need to do. We know what you're all about.
Yeah.
Trust me, this has none but. It's 9 o'clock, we have someone behind you. This is irrelevant for this.
Well,
Well, I think it's
Am I
important,
right
I think it's important that the community,
actually, it does include 2 approvals. You're approving the vet tenant as a site plan review. and
Well,
you're-
that's what I just, that's
Yes,
why I just
not a
said.
zone change. You're approving their tenant as the use of a vet office, and you're approving the modifications of the plaza in that location with the drive-through for the bank.
Okay, but didn't we approve
No.
these ladies already?
No, it
in
was
prior
a
location?
text
Location.
amendment. We did a text amendment to allow them to come into business local.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where that site plan review comes into play.
Okay.
And that's another reason why, Mr. Commissioner, that we actually asked them to come and speak in case you had specific questions for their use and their activities.
Okay.
That's part of what
I
George
thought
was talking
when
about.
last time they were here, I understood exactly everything they said, maybe no one else, but I did, so I know all about it. I'm excited to have you. I think I said that at the last meeting. That's why it just didn't make sense.
Yeah, their application was for a text change. We came in for a zone change. Now it's the activity itself.
All
that has
right,
to be
well, let's
approved
get
under
this
application.
activity going.
Vinny, you have an appointment tonight, or?
No, I,
Yeah, thanks for coming again. Good luck. Yeah, sure. Commissioner Alinsky.
I have a question, through the chair, I have a question for staff on the motions. Okay, I don't see any combined motion that combines the existing buildings with the particular building we're talking about tonight. I only see in motion B that it's application for a special use permit modification for the construction of the new building. It says nothing about making it all one.
That's a condition of approval.
Okay.
Typically, any applications that come before you that have multiple properties involved, for example, Union Square,
Yep.
3032 Bacon, they're always combined after
Okay,
the
so is that
approval.
already one of the conditions?
Yeah, typically is one of the conditions that the properties have to be merged.
It's under general conditions?
It is. I don't know if we specifically included it for this one. The applicant does plan to merge it once all those LLCs are
So would
figured
that
out.
have to be an added condition?
You could add it, yes.
And also, we would have to discuss a motion about the overlay issue.
Right, so I crossed it out on my memo in front of you. Just ignore that cross out. You can read it as is. And the bullet points that you see before you, you have to make findings that approve the waiver, the most applicable one being the first one. But that is your decision to make, of course. So you would
Okay,
read the
but all
waiver
three of them would be
first.
a pro- So we could just read that
Yep,
verbatim? Okay.
yes.
Just trying to get our.
Just ignore my
logistics
X.
straight. Okay. Thank you.
Keep going back and forth.
Is the tenant information in the approval?
Yes,
Yeah.
and under the motion to approve. So you're approving a special use permit modification and a site plan review for the vet tenant.
Okay. Do you see that?
Yeah, I see that. What I didn't see was,
Kind of goes over to the next page as well with the one site-specific condition from the assistant town engineer about the drainage connections will be shown on the final plans with pipe sizes and types and invert elevations per the assistant town engineer's comments.
Okay. So as we go along, is there any more questions to the applicants? Because we need to do, it is a public hearing, so we're going to have to open it up to the public. Staff, do you have anything else before we do that?
No other concerns, everything's been addressed.
Anybody else have any more questions? Go ahead, Mr. D'Antonio.
Yeah, a comment and a question. The comment is just as far as the setback. I mean, I am in support of the, allowing the shorter setback. I think that's important, especially in this part of town, to have smaller setbacks, front setbacks, for more human scale development. This is a very highly trafficked area by pedestrians, more accessible to pedestrians, and frankly, it just looks better. So I think that's important here, and going forward with our regulation updates, I hope we can take a look at possibly decreasing setbacks in the areas where it's most aesthetically important, center of town and walkable areas. That's just for
Thank you. No.
comment. Yeah. As far as my question slash concern, the only concern I have for this is the additional, the new curb cut. I understand we're getting rid of, technically we're getting rid of 2 curb cuts from 2 individual houses, but those are residential curb cuts, very different from commercial, and the curb cut proposed is I don't know, 20 feet away from the other one. I see conflict here. You're coming in here, saying that this is, one large project, right? One large property, technically different buildings, but shared infrastructure. So I see this as shared parking as well, which I've explained is important. But I am concerned about the 2 entrances right next to each other on Route 220. Like I said, this is a highly pedestrianized area, so there is that potential added conflict, and then just the conflict of vehicles entering and exiting these 2 immediately adjacent driveways. So I don't know if that's something else that any other commissioners have had concerns about. But I'll pass it to the applicant to address.
Happy to address that, Commissioner.
Yes, Dave Zieks again. That was a consideration early on, and quite frankly, I might share your concern if this was going to be another fast food restaurant or something else, where you have a high turnover here. There's a very low turnover. The driveway to the medical center is virtually not even used. It's there. It's part of the site plan. So we thought it was important to have a full-service driveway directly into into our parking area because of the uses that are going to be here. We looked at possibly combining these things, but quite frankly, what happens is you end up chopping up the parking lot, providing internal driveways, and you lose a lot of parking, and it gets very inefficient. So I think the trade-off was to provide a separate driveway for this use, which is, completely different than the medical center use, and given the low volumes, we just didn't have a concern with that. The traffic folks and your police department hasn't indicated any real concerns with it. Obviously, it's going to the state for final review. So if they have a problem with it, we may have to make a change, but I don't think they will. So long story is I would tend to agree with you if we had some much more higher intense uses, but we just don't have that here.
I fully get what you're saying, and that there's trade-offs either way. I'm thinking of the public who is not necessarily using the property, but who is, who are driving in or past it, or walking or cycling past it. So that's a concern of mine in the additional driveway. I'm pretty familiar with that property, and it does not appear that there's a shortage of parking today. So I'm not sure if there's a specific concern you have in terms of sacrificing a handful of spots for the benefit of the area.
Well, we do, one of the things we do have to do is meet the parking requirement in the zoning regulations. That's something maybe when you're looking at your new zoning regulations, you'll provide some more
hopefully.
flexibility for you folks, because right now you don't have a lot of flexibility in that regard. So we have to meet the parking requirements, and, you know, losing another half a dozen spaces would put us in jeopardy there.
Across all the parts. So I don't
No,
see
we're right
mentioned
at
about
we're right at the number. It just happens to be
for
we're
all the
right at
properties.
Yeah. But again, I understand exactly what you're saying, and I would share much more concern with you if we had big turnovers here. But given what this is going to be, I call it, from a non-technical word for traffic, pretty sleepy. You know, so I just don't have much concern with it.
Mr. D'Antonio, are you good? Did you have something?
I did.
Commissioner Alinsky?
Through the chair, I tend to agree with Commissioner D'Antonio. I really, when I looked at this the first time, I said, I don't see why you need another driveway there. I mean, you've already got two cuts on Elm Street and one cut on Enfield Street. And, you know, what you're adding is not that much. And these two driveways are pretty close together. Okay. I'm not sure why it's an issue as far as putting extra driveways in, because I don't see why people just can't drive around to the other driveway from the veterinary center.
No,
So it's an extra cut.
it's when you try to take, if you take away the driveway, then you have to do the circulation inside, and when you do that, you're going to lose a considerable number of parking spaces, and that's one issue for us. But the other issue is, we really didn't want to have the new customers have to drive through the medical center to get over to where they're just going in, visiting the vets or visiting the PT, and going away. They have no interest in the medical center and on that particular day, and
Yeah, it's just,
I think,
but the other
again,
driveway's right there.
I'm not going to argue
It's
with
right
you
there.
folks. If we had a much higher turnover, a much higher trip generation here, I wouldn't be even talking to you about it.
Okay.
But given the circumstances that are unique to this site, we think this will be fine.
That's the one that's there now.
Well, yeah, that's there now.
Oh, sorry, Walter? Are you all set? Are you all-
Yeah, I'm all set.
All right.
Why not make the new driveway in and the other driveway out? Just loop them around. You're not going to lose any spaces, you're not going to lose anything. And that will, because you got in and out in two places and very close to each other. But if you got the new driveways in and the other driveways and out.
You have a problem with that?
So to go back to the history of how we developed it the way we did it, number one, the medical facility in the center now occupied, which used to be occupied by St. Francis and Trinity, and now it's Hartford Hospital. They have ambulance pickup at times, plus they have drop-off. They actually wanted that design when we had the undercarriage building, which was talked about for Thompsonville. So the undercarriage is actually important, but at the same time, it's got ambulance access, and they don't want to go through the parking lot to go out. I'm not saying that couldn't do it, but I'm just going by what their preference was at the time, and that's in their lease agreement, that they have that right-of-way or that access, easy access to go through one way or the other. That's why it's at the height it is on either end of the building. In regards to the actual traffic for the other building itself, we actually thought it would be decreasing the amount of activity that's going to go through, because it's actually going in for where you want to go. Once you know where the veterinarian clinic is, you're going to be able to go there directly. But also, when we talked to the fire department, they wanted to have a swing radius regarding the aperture to come through. They don't want that to be a dead end. So we ended up having this kind of a quandary. We can't have a dead end in front of one building, and I've got a quandary with Hartford Hospital with the ambulance access. And it was like, well, why don't we put the two together, because we don't have a lot of activity. And that's really where it came down to two. And don't forget, in the back, when we had the zone change, we also said that at some point in time, if we ever were to work on something in the back, the angle of where the wetlands is actually in front of the veterinarian clinic. So that angle to go through, we didn't want to have it overly burden the other side. So we wanted to have a flowing traffic pattern. Now, that's not before you, and I think that's why everybody's being a little coy, but it's meant to be that we're trying not to have it overburden the rest of the site, to redesign it one more time and come before you and say, we have to re-talk about a new curb cut. And I think that's the bigger reason. But when we, if we close off one, we're going to have a problem with one. If we close off another, we'll have a problem with the fire department. That wanted to make sure, because we don't have access behind the building. And we wanted to make sure that we abided by the fire marshal. So that's another reason why it's actually the way it looks on the surface today. But we totally went through this. This is probably one of the most challenging parts of it, besides the cover overhang that we had in front of the veterinarian clinic. Since a lot of people walk their clients in the front, we wanted to have a cover. But that's exactly why we added the curb cut and we didn't take it away.
When you total up, I'm sorry, Walter, I'm sorry. When you,
Laurie wanted something.
I'm just going to ask, when you total up the length of the two curb cuts now, and then versus the one curb cut, do you have that information? I mean, you take the two curb cuts, how much curb cut is there?
Residential to commercial.
And so what's the new curb cut?
Yeah.
24 and 24.
Let me just check so I don't.
The two houses? That's two
Yeah.
driveways, yeah, I'm just wondering the width of the two. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, while
Sure.
he's looking that up, two things. Ultimately, OSTA is going to make the decision as to whether the curb. Ultimately, OSTA is going to make the decision as to the curb cuts.
Okay.
And second of all, I just wanted to note that you've got 8 people seated tonight. And actually, this month is Christian D'Antonio's month to fill in based on the alternate voting schedule, so.
Right, I seated Walter too tonight.
Right, but then you've got 8 people, you have 8 people
We
seated.
didn't need to seat Walter, you said, right?
Correct, yes. Yeah, it's Christian's month to be seated.
No, we needed two.
No, you're only missing 2 people, so,
You're only missing one member.
right.
That was the issue. Okay.
So do you want to unseat them?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
I just
Laura,
wanted
go
to
with you?
clarify that before you started the votes.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I would, Mr. Chairman, in answer to your question, the driveways are right next to each other.
Yeah.
So it's a wide span. It's about 40 feet or so across.
Okay, wow,
And we're going down to 24 feet.
okay.
Yeah, they're paved right next to each
I
other.
see
so
that now, we got brought up a
it
picture.
kind of
of it.
becomes, it kind of becomes one big driveway.
So, the answers were to the issues of the driveways. I think it was more of a public safety concern during your ERTs.
Right.
Okay, and
Well, the only assurance I can give the commission in this is that there is one more big daddy above us that's going to review this.
right, and that's what Lori just said.
And, if they're okay with the driveways, they're okay with the driveways. If they force us to one way in, one way out or something, then we're going to have to conform to what they say, because they dictate ultimately, even though you folks have obviously a say in it, they will dictate what the final connection to the Route 20 or 220 is.
Right.
So if they have concern, if they share your concerns, they're going to force us to do something else.
Okay, Christian?
Through the chair to the staff, just to clarify, us as the Planning and Zoning Commission, we do have jurisdiction over the safety, traffic, vehicle access, safety, and circulation of the property as well, right? And this.
You
even-
do, but
even for-
OSTA has the last word.
Well, they have the last.
You have more authority within the site than you do at
within
the
the site.
curb cuts.
But we are talking about circulation within the site, because the whole point of the proposed driveway is to avoid circulation within the site, or to minimize circulation within the site. Whereas to me, what I'm seeing kind of is a driveway is being added to avoid having full circulation within the site. So it seems like, to me, it's like we're adding an extra driveway to save drivers by
Right.
like 5 feet of extra driving within the parking lot. And I mean, frankly, it's kind of silly to me that we.
Well, we didn't have any comments from the traffic police There was no comment?
I honestly, no comment, and I honestly wouldn't dwell on it too much, just because at the end of the day, OSTA can change anything that they want to change.
That's right.
So even if you do disapprove of one curb cut, OSTA could come in and be like, oh, we want that second curb cut.
They could require an additional.
Yes.
curb cut.
OSTA is like, they have the last say on all the traffic parts of the project.
Okay.
Office of State Traffic.
If I can just, you all set? So if I can just add to that, where we have in our applications and packets, we have a section for all the staff. Includes the fire and police, traffic. So I think, and for me, when I look at these, I lean to them as being the experts in their field. And they talked to the applicants and would, wanted to have those curb cuts. So, we need to rely on those comments in our documents that we get. I mean, if the police say, that's what they like and they think it's going to work, they're the experts in that field. So, they look at the crash counts and, and fire looks at turning radiuses and those kind of things. So if they suggested those things, we should dovetail what the experts say, whether it's traffic or fire or sewer or engineering, because that's their field. And for me, I think that part of our packets, when we see staff reports or staff requirements, I think they're important, and I think they guide us. I do. I use them as a guide. If WPC has a negative comment, we shouldn't approve it. Or if engineering or any of them have something that they have a concern with,
Excuse me?
we should make sure the applicant.
I don't know if this might make you feel better or not, but typically for OSTA, usually they request a letter from our local traffic authority to support that application. So our traffic officer is going to weigh in again when they go with OSTA.
So we do have authority, but we should get our authority from the experts too, to make our decisions.
Right, they provide.
They provide,
guidance,
right,
yes,
guidance
and-
to us, and I think you can never go wrong if you, take their guidance, whether it's for or against, and we go with the experts. I think I feel comfortable.
But from where I'm coming from just a general planning perspective, the fewer curb cuts, the better, is basically how it goes, especially in
I hear you.
busy areas, especially in highly pedestrianized areas. So I understand that for these uses, there'll be, relatively minimal traffic counts.
I think
But
public safety is number one. And those are two public safety issues.
And the more curb cuts there are, the more conflict points there are. That's what I'm bringing up. And I understand traffic did not bring it up as a concern. That's why I'm bringing it up as a concern.
This was, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, this was brought up during the ART, and they've got their reasons for what they're proposing, and we'll see what happens when OSTA and the local traffic authority reviews it.
Yeah, understood.
Anybody have anything else before we open up to the public? Anybody, anything? Okay, at this time, we're going to have the applicants step back, and if there is anybody in the public that would like to come forward to speak for or against this application, now would be the time. Anybody in the public that would like to come forward? There's none? Nobody signed up, but I got to say it 2 more times. I got to still say it 2 more times, right? Anybody in the public want to come up and speak for or against this application? Anybody in the public want to come up and speak for or against this application? Seeing none, public communication is closed. Okay, gentlemen.
Can you make a motion?
To close.
We're going to have them come back up?
A motion to close
the public hearing.
Right.
Yeah,
But they need to come back up.
they,
We can still ask them questions if anybody has anything. You going to leave Mr. Ziyax over there by himself? Jeez, poor guy.
He probably likes it.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to close the public.
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Roll call on that.
Do we need to do
I think on closing a public hearing, we need a roll call.
show of hands?
We'll do show of hands? Okay, show of hands.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Okay, does anybody have anything else? Entertain a motion to approve.
Okay,
This
just to,
application.
just to clarify
Oh.
now.
I'm sorry?
He's got to read the whole thing.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, I will. But just to clarify, do I need to add a condition for combining the properties?
You can,
Yes.
yes,
How could I? could
with the
you give me some
condition that
wording?
the properties will be merged upon completion.
Okay. Okay, I'll do that. Okay, we have two motions. Motion A, motion to approve a waiver of the required 35-foot setback to 25.5 foot for section 8.60.f on the finding of one or more of the following, most applicable being the first one, permit of more functional use of the site relative to building location, parking, or access. Number two, provide for the preservation of existing site features to include specimen trees and other plantings, or allow for a superior building site design meeting the purposes of the district.
Second.
Discussion. Any discussion? Roll call.
Okay?
Take your time, kid.
Let me get my-
Got a lot of paper here.
My roll call sheet on here. Ah, here we go.
He's wearing two hats tonight.
Okay. Terrence
Why he
Lynch.
gets paid the big bucks?
Terrence Lynch.
Terrence?
4.
Linda DeGray.
4.
John Petronella is not here. Francis Alamo.
4.
Joseph Muley.
4.
Kenneth Helinski is 4. Vinnie Grillo.
4.
Christian D'Antonio.
4.
And that's it.
Okay.
So unanimous vote. Motion passes.
Motion passes. Now we have another one, right?
Motion B. Motion to approve public hearing number 3097, 855 Enfield Street, and 717 and 21 Elm Street. Application for a special use permit modification for the construction of a new commercial building and a site plan review approval for a veterinary tenant. Triano Properties LLC and A&L Triano Family LLC. Applicant, owner, map 26, lot 28, with the following
She said her-
conditions, 26, and I'm going to add 27, saying by final approval, the properties will be merged.
As well as the drainage condition,
What?
as well as site-specific number 1 about the drainage.
Oh, one other thing, you said to read in the X out part, didn't you?
Oh,
You already did that, and you can ignore
Okay.
that.
okay. And the site-specific condition, the drainage connections will be shown on the final plans with pipe sizes and types and invert elevations per the assistant town engineer's comments.
Second. on that. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay.
There's a second discussion on, did you need something? Seconded by
Terrence Lynch? Okay.
Okay, discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Terrence Lynch.
4.
Linda DeGray.
4.
Francis Alamo.
4.
Joseph Muley.
4.
Kenneth Malinsky is 4. Vinnie Grillo.
4.
Christian D'Antonio.
4.
Okay, unanimous vote.
Congratulations. Thank you very much. At this time, we're going to take a 3-minute recess. 3 to 5 minutes.
Make it 5 because we have.
You're going to need 5.
Oh, we do?
Excuse me, Mr.
5.
Chairman. The only bathrooms that are available are downstairs.
Yep, I was just informed of that, so instead of 3 minutes, it's going to be 5. We're going to take a break here, let everybody get organized and Call the meeting back to order. Alex is here, he's ready. Yeah, I guess he is, there's the Felician Sisters. Okay, let's see. So under new public hearings, we're on B. I'm sorry, under new public hearings, we are on B. It's PH 3098, Mr. Secretary Chair.
Okay.
Would you please, what's this?
The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission hereby opens public hearing 3098, 1297 Enfield Street. Application for a special use permit for elderly housing per section 4.40.3.K. Felician Sisters of North America Real Estate Trust, owners, applicants, map 46, lot 2, HR 33 zone.
Okay, the applicants are here. Please, for the record, your name and address.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Carl Landolina from Fahey and Landolina, 487 Spring Street, Windsor Locks, Connecticut, representing the applicant, Felician Sisters of North America Real Estate Trust. I'm joined here tonight by, to my immediate right, Stephanie White, project engineer with Fuss & O'Neill. To her right is Adam Palmer, a principal at Emma Architects in Hartford, Connecticut, and other offices throughout the Northeast. Behind me, I have Gina Musinski. She's a traffic engineer with Fuss & O'Neill, and Keith Goudreau, who helped design the project. If you have any questions regarding drainage or anything like that, he's prepared to comment or answer those questions. He's also from Fuss & O'Neill. We also have Rasha Crowley from the Community Builders, who's been involved in this project for about 4 or 5 years, and Bridget Armstrong and Julie James from Felician Sisters Services. So we've got the full team here. We should be able to address any questions, concerns, or comments that you may have. I had prepared 3 hours worth of testimony and presentation. All right, so, but I'm going to knock it down in about 10 minutes. So you all know the history here. I don't have to go into it. I think I see almost all familiar faces, and the folks who weren't here and 3 years ago, I think you probably watched online or probably were in the audience when we made other attempts to get something approved on the project. We had many meetings with the community members, with folks behind me, and I think that it's telling that first go around we had, John Kissel was in the room, we had community leaders, Tom Tyler, your new town attorney, was here speaking against the project. The room was full, and now I see Nikki Price and Anne Marie. I'm sorry, forgot your last name. Anne. Galdes, yes. So anyway, we've got 2 people here, and I think hopefully they're here to talk about the fantastic project that we're coming before you tonight. We listened to everyone. When I came in first time 3 years ago and said we wanted to work with the town because we have a need here, we've got some property, we've got some internal issues that we have to resolve in order to make this campus work into the future, and we said we want to work with everybody, and I think we've done that. Other than that, I really won't go into it. We've had to change part of your regulations to get this project the way it stands now, at least in the running. And at that time, we went through, I think, a fairly lengthy presentation. Conceptually, it hasn't really changed since then, what we showed you, I think, in March. And one of the things we had to establish at that point for the text amendment was consistency with the plan of conservation and development. And I think you found that it was consistent, otherwise you would not have approved the text amendment. So that, from that perspective, I'm not really going to go into all of that. So with that, I'm just going to turn it over and let Stephanie White from Fuss & O'Neill start her presentation of the project.
Thank you, Attorney Linda.
Thanks, Carl. Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commission members. For the record, my name is Stephanie White. I am not a doctor, but I am a licensed landscape architect. Yeah. with the engineering consulting firm Hudson O'Neill, 146 Hartford Road in Manchester, Connecticut. So as Carl mentioned, most of you are very familiar with the property, so I'll keep it brief and give you just a quick overview. As Carl mentioned, we're here tonight seeking site plan approval for a special permit for 45 units of elderly housing in the HR 33 zone. Just to orient everyone, so South Road here is onto the top of the page, Enfield Street, Route 5, on the left, and we have Interstate 91 over there on to the east. And then, as everyone knows, there's a multitude of building uses on the property. We have the convent most north, the school, we have the Orrin Thompson House, and then behind the Orrin Thompson House, we have the St. Francis Elderly Housing, which has 22 units of elderly housing, and then our subject property area for this application is the St. Felix Center. In yellow, you can see the delineated wetlands, and the yellow dash line is our 100-foot upland review area. We did go before the Inland Wetlands Commission last week, and we did receive approval from the Inland Wetlands Commission on July 2nd for impacts and site disturbances in the upland review area. So current access to the St. Felix Center, vehicular access is limited to the south off our property, coming in from Little Sisters of the Poor site. And you can either come in up behind the residence here into a small parking lot or traverse the access drive that's fairly steep, in excess of over 10% grades to get there. So there really isn't a easy way to get to the St. Felix Center from a vehicular standpoint. So what we'll be presenting to you is some new vehicular circulation patterns. How do I exit? Okay, so circulation existing. So there are 4 curb cuts currently to access the property off of South Road. And in green arrows are the existing main sort of vehicular spine circulation patterns, and then in red are 2 curb cuts that access the parking lots. We are looking to consolidate those curb cuts. The 2 red parking lot curb cuts really, don't, we want to Commissioner D'Antonio's point, we really want to create more of a safer access along here and reduce conflict and to have a more of a clearer visual entranceway. So the proposed circulation patterns, as we're showing, is in red that are the 2 circulation patterns that are existing here on site. The one most east towards Enfield Street is Enfield Montessori School bus drop-off and parent loop, and then the existing circulation pattern for the convent and the St. Francis residence would exist and remain with this proposal. In blue is what we are proposing for our new circulation pattern. It was really important that we kept this circulation completely separate from the existing operations that happen there on campus today. So what we're looking to do is tee off the existing drive and create this lower access drive down to a parking lot that would support the new 45 units of elderly housing. And in orange, you can see that that whole area would be contained for the outdoor school use that they have for open lawn area. The existing chicken coop would remain that the school uses. The greenhouse there would have to get rebuilt. We would be rebuilding a new greenhouse, putting it adjacent to the chicken coop so that all that contiguous area is contained and completely separated from the new access to the St. Felix addition. Now to the site plan. So bulk density requirements we meet and exceed, and Lori's staff report mentioned in there. We have, those are maximum loft coverage of 25%. We are proposed at a 8.1% lot coverage. We meet the density requirements of 5 units per acre. We are proposed at 2.5 units per acre for a total, with our 45 units, with the existing 22 units of the St. Francis home. It's a proposal of total of 67 units on the 26-acre parcel. And we are meeting the side yard and rear yard setbacks of the building. So I'll just walk you through briefly for the site plan improvements. As mentioned, a new access drive will be created on the lower half of the site, and this is where we had some impacts to the upland review area wetland setbacks that we had received approval last week from Inland Wetlands. The existing line of maple trees that you can see out here towards that wetland line, that would be remained. Those are left untouched. And we are adding additional trees along the access drive to create that more of a tree-lined drive along here. Oops, I'm moving too fast. And then you can see here, this is the existing chicken coop. This would be the proposed location for the new greenhouses. In this darker green here area, that's where our stormwater basins are proposed. We are meeting all of the stormwater requirements and detaining and providing water quality in these areas. And then coming down through the drive, you arrive upon a circular looped 50-car parking space. When we've done that, we didn't want to have a sort of a dead end circulation pattern that where people have to back up, so cars and delivery vehicles can easily, and for dumpster and trash removal, can easily navigate the parking lot and turn themselves around and to get back onto the site. And yeah, in that 50-car parking lot, we have, our meet and exceed our ADA spaces required, and we have 6 EV provisions for 6 EV charging stations and a total of 6 ADA spaces, which exceeds the building code, which would be only required of 2 ADA spaces. And knowing the nature of the use of elderly housing, we added additional ADA spaces. And then we'll get into a little bit more of the detail here, so you can see the parking lot looping system here with a very wide, ample landscape island to allow for more plantings and to pick up the grade change between the two parking lots. The dumpster location, trash removal, is located here, an adjacent generator. This area here would be for fire access, to allow fire access between the two roads and to traverse the topography. This would be a crushed stone access drive that would be gated, but also can serve as a walking path as well. There's ample new sidewalks connecting into the building and into this courtyard area, this wonderful courtyard area for amenities. There's actually 3 sitting spaces here that are proposed. There's one here into the north, sort of this little sunken garden space, seating terrace, one off of the new building, and then a large gathering space with a focal point of a specimen tree planted there with trellis to provide lots of shading for the residents. There's also community garden plots, raised planters that are proposed along here that will be fenced in and provide with benches along here as well. In terms of lighting, we have site lighting proposed throughout the parking lot that have full cutoffs at 14-foot pole heights, and we have bollard lighting along the walkways. There's also wall pack lighting at the entrances on the architecture as well to provide ample illumination. And then landscape, you can see we have an abundant, robust landscape proposed here for buffering along. These are resident patios here, so we wanted to give privacy to each of those patios, and we have a nice substantial landscape all along the facade, as well as throughout the whole proposed area. We have lots of additional trees proposed. I think we can all agree that this site is a wonderful collection of beautiful, majestic trees, almost an arboretum, if you will, and we really wanted to support and enhance the campus with the additional robust planting that were proposed. And, in terms of utilities serviced, so this is where we're have a schematic routing for utilities. In green here is sewer. There is an existing manhole here on the parade grounds. Currently, the St. Felix Center is serviced by a line that connects into the Little Sisters of the Poor house. So we want to take that offline and keep our sewer on our property. So we're proposing a new connection out into the parade grounds here, and you can see we're really threading the needle, so to speak, through all these majestic trees to ensure that we maintain that through the trenching of the new sewer lateral that is being proposed up to our addition. And then we're tapping in, there is an existing electrical power line in here that we're tapping into for the addition, as well as the water main in here. And the gas and electrical right now is schematic. It's obviously once it gets vetted through Eversource and CNG, the final determination of those connections will be deemed. And lastly, I'll just talk about construction sequencing. So this is a preliminary plan that the construction managers, enterprise builders put together. So looking at really utilizing this new lower access drive that we're proposing as being the main thoroughfare to get construction activities in here. So the easterly-most curb cut would remain during construction. That would be open, and that would be that construction entrance. And there would be an anti-tracking pad along here, and construction access would occur along the lower half, and staging would happen in where the proposed parking lot is. The site will be completely fenced. The west side and the south side will have screening screening along the construction fencing as well, but there'll be also construction fencing all along the south end of it. Soil and erosion control, obviously we have a lot of topography here on site. Our soil and erosion control plans meet all of the Connecticut guidelines for soil and erosion control as well. And the parking lot, as one of the engineering comments was asking if it was a cut or a fill site, and this is an imported fill earthwork to raise up this area, this parking area, to meet ADA access into the building. So there will be an imported fill to create the infrastructure to support that building. And that, I think that's all I have for site. The fire marshal, we met with the fire marshal, and we have included in the packet, there's a fire access plan where we showed demonstrating that the fire truck can maneuver on the radius on that fire lane gravel path. We worked with him on the dimensions of the trucks, so we meet the fire access requirements.
While you're on that, did you guys get this today, dated the 11th?
We just got it a few hours ago, yes.
Yeah.
You're talking, did you address this
We
relative
haven't
to the fire
addressed it in the
department?
plans, but if you want to make it a condition of approval, obviously, we can,
Just talking about the Stone Dust Road?
right, yeah.
Okay, continue, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned the fire department.
Yeah,
Just
so,
seen-
right.
This
yeah,
just got dropped on us.
I know, and that got dropped in our inbox about an hour before
Well,
here,
we're
so.
happy to have it later now.
Yeah.
Happy to have it.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to pass it over to Adam, the project architect.
Thank you, everyone. And clarification, I am a project manager with Amentum Architects. I am not a principal. In case my bosses are watching, I am not at
You
their
don't have a
level
piece of the
yet.
action?
Not yet, unless this is my promotion party. I don't know. So Adam Palmer, project manager with Amentum Architects at 242 Trumbull Street in Hartford. Starting here, before we get to the building itself, we'll start with the view from across Enfield Street, looking across the parade grounds. In the background, you can see a little bit right here where the St. Felix Center is visible through the trees that are established on the parade grounds. So I wanted to show you this as an existing condition today, this being the view during summer, autumn, and spring when there's foliage on the trees. Here is in the middle, we inserted wintertime photograph of these trees so that you can see a little bit more of St. Felix Center. And then this being the after during the winter, you can barely see right here due to the size of our proposed addition, it being 3 stories. It being behind the St. Felix Center and also being at a slightly lower elevation, there's just a little bit of the elevation of the new proposed elevation that is visible behind the existing St. Felix Center.
Can you point to that with your
Sure. It's right above the cursor for reference.
So the point is, it's barely visible.
I think we talked about it at the last meeting. It's like 3 feet or something. Yeah.
Correct. Stepping back again, just looking at the campus from a broader perspective, we wanted to show a collection of the buildings that are on the campus to understand visually what we are working around. There's a mix of buildings, different eras, different ages of construction. One of them is on the historic registry. Other buildings are older and of a historic nature. They may not be listed on a registry, but they do have a historic importance to them. So we wanted to understand what we're working with and then understand how we have to work in complement of that, knowing that at some point, which happened to be, I believe, 2 weeks ago, the State Historic Preservation Office met on site with community builders to review our proposed plans to add on to and renovate the St. Felix Center. They approved of our approach where we are touching delicately on the existing building. We're matching some materials. We're not matching the style. We're following the approach that historic preservation prefers, which is do not mimic the historic, complement the historic, which is what we've done here. We've brought the brick through as a base for the proposed addition, and then the lighter colored siding on the upper floors of the addition is pulling from the limestone accents on the existing building. Again, not trying to mimic, not trying to copy what was done. It's a beautiful old historic building. We want to appreciate and respect that and let our building just sit behind it and fade away and not compete with the aesthetic of the historic building. You'll see in the background here there is a larger brick element that rises up. That is a new elevator that is proposed that is in between our connection point and the existing building that will serve all 3 floors of the St. Felix Center, and then will also serve the addition. Quickly looking at the floor plans, the ground floor plan on the lower right, this houses the main entrance, main lobby, office space at the upper right-hand corner. On this floor, we also have 1-bedroom units in the new construction, some shared amenity space being laundry and lounge space, and then in the St. Felix Center, this is the basement level. We have resident storage, storage for the building, maintenance for the building, and then a community room. Here is that one elevator I pointed out that attaches between our connection point and the existing building. There's a second elevator here within the addition. We have 2 elevators to serve in case one goes down for maintenance. We still have another elevator that's functioning for the residents. Moving up to the first floor and the second floor, they're essentially the same. Mix of 1-bedroom units in the new construction with some amenity space, and then the renovated St. Felix Center has 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units, or 1-bedroom and studio units, I apologize, and then again, shared amenity space for laundry. And then the third floor of St. Felix, again, a mix of one-bedroom and studios. All in, there are 45 units, 41 units being one-bedrooms, 4 units being studios. Going to the elevations, starting at the top, we have the existing west-facing elevation of the St. Felix Center with modifications being new windows. Other than that, it's restoring what's there and then adding on a new entry vestibule to provide security and accessibility to this level. The next elevation down, showing the north elevation where we have that delicate connection of new to existing. And then below that is a section through the building showing how on that lowest level, how we're connecting our new finished floor elevation with a couple of small ramps to get up to the basement level of the St. Felix Center. Go back. And then the other two elevations, again, just reiterating what we've already said, where we're paying homage to the existing building while trying not to compete with it aesthetically. And with that, I will turn it over to traffic, and thank you very much.
Just for clarification, Carl, is this the same traffic report that was put into record previous? We've seen a traffic report. Remember?
No, this is an updated traffic report dated June 6, 2024 for the revised
Did it again.
development.
Okay.
Yeah, we did it again.
Oh,
Different use.
okay. Thank you for that.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Gina Musinski, and I'm a traffic engineer with Fuss & O'Neill. The address is 146 Hartford Road in Manchester, Connecticut, for the record. I am here to summarize the findings of the revised traffic impact study dated June 6, 2024, and it's signed by Mark Vertucci, professional engineer and professional transportation operations engineer. So the slide in front of you today was previously shown to show the existing conditions of the site. Just to reorient everyone, South Road is located to the north, Enfield Street, or Route 5, is located to the west, the Little Sisters of the Poor property to the south, and I-91 to the east. Montessori School is located on the property, and Enfield High School is located approximately 1,500 feet north of the site on Enfield Road. So as part of our analysis, we reviewed the signalized intersection of South Road at Enfield Street, along with the 4 existing site driveways that provide access onto and off of South Road. We conducted new turning movement counts on Thursday, May 16th, 2024 for the analysis, and we did establish that the peak hours of the turning movement counts align with commuter travel, so they were 7 to 8 a.m. and 4 to 5 p.m. Bear with me as I was gentle. So as mentioned, we are consolidating from the 4 driveways to 2 driveways for safer access management and fewer conflict points. And we are proposing 45 elderly housing residential units. We conducted a trip generation analysis for these residential units using the industry-wide resource Institute of Transportation Engineers trip generation manual. We utilized the Land Use Code 252 for multifamily senior housing, and it yielded a result of 9 total vehicle trips in the morning and 11 total vehicle trips in the afternoon. So for perspective, that's about 1 vehicle coming or going every 5 to 6 minutes during the peak hour of trip generation. In general, this is a very minimal generator for this area and for the site itself. As part of our analysis, we took the 2024 turning movement counts that were conducted and grew them to the 2025 design year using a standard rate of 0.6% per year. This was a rate established by the Connecticut Department of Transportation. And that number for the 2025 build year is the baseline traffic volumes. Additionally, through conjunction with town staff and the Department of Transportation, there is a previously approved development that's located approximately 3/4 miles east of our site. We incorporated the trip generation from that development as well, and that combined with the baseline volumes yields our background volumes for the analysis. So that gives us the before this constructed development volumes for the background analysis. We also revised in the background analysis, we included the 4 existing driveways, and then for the combined analysis, added the trip generation for the proposed development and reduced the driveways to the 2 driveways. In conclusion, we yielded that the level of service at the signalized intersection will be maintained at level of service B, and the level of service at the site, the 2 site driveways, are maintained at a safe level of service as well. We reviewed the crash data for the area and the signalized intersection, in addition to the stop-controlled driveways, do not have any abnormal crash patterns that we see for the roadway types and styles in the area. And our team measured the intersection site distance in accordance with Connecticut Department of Transportation criteria, and there is adequate intersection site distance at the 2 driveways that we'll maintain. For a vehicle, intersection site distance would be for a vehicle exiting the site looking left or right on South Road prior to exiting the site to establish adequate space for that maneuver. Overall, the impacts to the adjacent roadway network will be de minimis for this project as a whole. So in conclusion, there will be no noticeable impacts on the traffic infrastructure on the adjacent roadway network. And as previously mentioned, we are modifying a campus that houses more than 100,000 square feet or 200 parking spaces. So this application, following, should this be approved, will also go to the Office of State Traffic Administration for a OSTA certificate review. I will be available for questions after, but I'm going to turn it back over to Carl.
So again, for the record, Carl Landolin, just so in the interest of clarity and making sure all the questions from staff were answered, we did see the fire marshal's concerns, and we're agreeable to take those and, put them into our project. The only other issue that was remaining was the town engineer had a question about cuts and fills. And we just touched on it generally, but in the interest of being fully disclosed and candid with you, he was curious about the number of the cubic yards of material that's going to come in. So, given the grade that's there, and essentially to be ADA compliant for the parking lot, we're going to be bringing in a significant amount of fill, which is, I think, and Mr. Goujo can talk about this more, but I think the number was 21,000 cubic yards of material is going to come in off of that construction driveway. Most of it, well, why don't he come up here now and explain it better than I would. I did look at your regulations. It does not require an additional special permit under your regulations because this would be part of a bona fide construction project, so no other permits are needed. But I just want to disclose to you that the amount of fill, and he can talk about it if you'd like to.
Did you see engineering mention something on this letter tonight too about sidewalks, bases, how thick the base has to be, dumpster pads? Did you see this too? While you're on engineering, I just wanted to bring this up.
Yeah.
And again, the last minute stuff is, we apologize, but
Yeah. We have no problem with anything that.
yeah, just talking about sidewalk base and
those are
dumpster.
easy. Those are details we can modify.
I just want to be sure that you have this too.
Yeah, we saw that like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock today.
Okay, good.
So if you would introduce yourself. Yeah.
So Keith Goodrow from Fuss & O'Neill, I'm a professional engineer who worked on this project. And yeah, just to touch upon the cut and fill question, we did do a volume analysis of what the existing condition is and what's going to be required to meet the grades we need for the parking lot and building pad. And it's approximately 21,000 cubic yards of fill that will need to be brought in to the site. And so I think, hopefully that clarifies the concern of the engineering comment about is the site cut or fill. It's definitely going to be a fill site.
So again, Carl Landolina for the record. So just in terms of being complete, for the record to be complete, I'd just like to spend a couple of minutes going through your requirements under the regulations and show how we comply. Obviously, new section, K under 4.30 point whatever it was, I'm sorry, the text amendment, we obviously meet those requirements because they were designed around this project. You know, we have the 10 acres. Right now, this phase of the project would result in about a 2.5 units per acre density. If we ever choose to put any more housing here, elderly housing, it would go inside the convent. Probably wouldn't need a lot of infrastructure, and the number of units that might be available would be, the total number of units minus what we've got here is be somewhere in this high 60 range, but that would be something that might happen in the future. Obviously, we meet the setbacks, the building heights. There's a plan there that shows the building heights, which was part of the slideshow. We meet all the building heights, and your height requirement specifically for this area does not include the height of those elevator towers and anything that might be placed on the roof. So we meet your height requirements. The regulation that it stands now, after you amended it after we came in, only allows 1 bedroom or studio units. That's all we wanted to do in the beginning, and that's all we have planned. It's 4 studio apartments, 41 1-bedroom apartments, and to the extent that, we've got the 10 acres here already, we don't have to merge any additional parcels. Just very briefly, we are still subject to the overall requirements of the 4.40.3 housing for the elderly requirements. I think staff has gone through those with us, and I think we meet all of those requirements as well, the ones that haven't been changed by subsection K. We've provided, we're going to have deed restrictions as required. We have to have outdoor recreational facilities, and Stephanie's gone through what those are, the amenities, the walking paths, the communal areas, the community gardens, so on and so forth. For this project, in this particular HR 33, the density which is allowed in other zones of 16 has been reduced to 5. We meet that. We have public water and sewer, and we talked about the height. And we meet your age restrictions, so on. And again, deed restrictions will be put in place. And then just generally, the requirements under 9.2 of your regulations, the special permit criteria, that you must make a finding or consider the following objectives, that we are the extent to which our use complies with specific criteria assigned under, in this case, Article 4, we've met that. Proposed structures or equipment and materials should be readily accessible for fire and police. We've got reports saying that they are. The proposed use and its size, character in general will be in harmony and appropriate in orderly development of the district. We think we meet that requirement. Nothing we're going to do here is going to be detrimental to orderly development of adjacent properties. Essentially, everything around us is already developed. We've got the highway on one side and the higher density health use to our south road to our north, and the housing to our west. And I think we meet the other requirements under section 9.20.2. So in closing, I think this is a good project. It meets the needs of a lot of residents in your town. You've got an extremely long waiting list, even though the Housing Authority just got the similar grant that we got, so they're going to be adding units. But even with their project and our project, you're not going to meet your need probably for the foreseeable future. So I think it's a good project for the residents. We've discussed ad nauseum the need for the Felician Sisters to do something here to keep this campus vibrant and in use into the future. And I think this is the perfect project, and I think it's something generally which is supported by the community and by the immediate neighbors. and some of them are here to talk to you in that regard. I think it's what people asked for. It's a better project than probably what we came in here with last time. So with that, we're asking for your approval, hopefully tonight. If you haven't already given out too many approvals for tonight, and you've got a few more minutes left. But with that, we'll end our presentation and let you take comment from the public. And if you have any questions, we're here to answer them as well.
All right, thank you. So we'll start with staff. Lori, do you want to add anything before we?
No, I think they summarized things quite well, and
See this in your sleep?
they meet or exceed all of the requirements, and it's a fabulous project.
And thank you for all the hard work.
Thank you.
Any comments from, please?
Yeah, I just have one quick question on traffic, and you're cutting out 2 of the driveways coming in, which is fine. I understand that. The one thing I want to make sure that people took a look at, you're saying the one on the west side is going to be for the kids coming into the Montessori school and dropping them off.
Yes.
Yeah. And the one in the middle is going to feed everything else in the back there and eventually feed into the others. The one thing I want to just make sure everybody's aware of, that parking lot that would be on the right as you drove in by the convent, that at the beginning of school and at pickup time, not so much at the beginning, but at pickup time from the school, that's a full parking lot. So I want to make sure there's enough turning radius and everything in there. So when people come in and wait to pick up the kids at whatever time it is, 2:30 or whatever it is, they get picked up. And you'll find that on the pickup time going into the main drive of the school, going in front of the school, you'll find that there's cars parked along South Road waiting to get in when they pick them up. They line up there. I just want to make sure that's known, because you're taking 2 ways that people get in and out of, one way that they get in and out of the parking lot. The driveway to the east, I think it's east, but I think so.
That way.
Yeah, in front of the garage. Nobody uses that driveway anyway, so that's not a big deal.
Right.
But the one that you're going to use for your main access to everything in the back, people also drive back there to drop kids off at that side of the school. So, I mean, you got 2 driveways that are coming into the school. And I only know that because I have a grandson that goes there, and sometimes I get put into that position, which is fine. But I don't know that everybody is aware of the traffic that's right in that area at closing time of school, more so even than drop-off time. Is drop-off time, people are in and out pretty quick.
There's access from
That's
here
all.
to there, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, so that's a great question, Commissioner. So this access point obviously will remain, and there is so those folks who will have to use this parking lot will be encouraged to use this access point as their entrance into that parking lot, right? Yeah.
But then they're back in and out of that that one driveway, where right now there's 2.
Right, understood.
Just so you know, and it's a pretty busy place at 2:30 in the afternoon. It may only last 15 minutes or half hour, but it lasts that 15 minutes.
That is certainly something to take into account. The benefit of the use that's on this site as well is that the time frame, especially for the afternoon peak hour, the morning peak hour does align more generally with the school use, but the afternoon peak hour is between 4 and 5 p.m. in the afternoon. So fortunately, we're looking at like complementary uses here, so it shouldn't impact, especially that afternoon traffic.
I understand it may not impact it much at all, but you've cut the use of that parking lot because you only have one driveway.
I think your concern is more about, internal circulation and the convenience of the folks who who traditionally have been able to use that.
Correct.
Yeah, I understand that.
Just something to think about.
Right.
I don't mind I don't mind the curb cuts being missing at all, but I'm just,
Well, I'll be honest with you, we definitely want to eliminate this one, because we don't want to go to OSTA and say, we've got 3, we want 4.
oh, absolutely.
So we can eliminate this one. We're not married to the idea of eliminating this one. If you want us to keep it, and that's your, yeah.
I'm not involved in that. I just want people to be aware of
Right.
what's there.
Yeah.
I'm not in and out of there that often that personally it concerns me only because I know people that are in that situation.
Well, let me suggest this. I know we're here for, this is more of a site plan issue in terms of approval, right? So let's assume that 2 months from now, 5 months from now, we decide we'd like to keep this open. It would seem to me that we could just go to staff and say, we've changed our minds. We'd like to keep this open because Commissioner Lynch and other people have convinced us that maybe that's a better idea. Is that something that might be possible administratively to do that?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't need to look back at this if we
Yeah.
said we want to keep one more open. You wouldn't
again,
care, right?
Melissa's going to comment.
I personally wouldn't, but there are some commissioners here I think that might, and
Yeah.
that's okay. I just wanted you guys, while you're planning and doing things, to be aware of it.
Right. Yeah.
That's the only reason for my comment.
And it's a good comment, and I understand it, because every time I go here,
You get into the wrong one.
I drive into the wrong one, and I have to make a circuitous route to get to go over here. But, so I've driven around this entire place many times needlessly. But I do, this one in particular, I have driven through, and I do understand, because people have told me that for that 15 minutes, it can be a little hair-raising or what have you.
And that's all I'm saying.
No, it's a good comment. I just,
Is it possible, Carl, is it possible to have discussion with the Montessori people?
We
And
have.
See what they think about that?
Yeah, we
Because
have.
If you did keep that one your cursor's on now, would that make it a circular thing for those people? Rather than a K-turn?
I think they just park and what do you, well, I'll ask Commissioner Lynch, do you get out of your car and?
No, the car, would it say that car came in where the cursor was, could
Yeah.
they go back out the other one?
They could go back out this way.
What's that mean? So instead of having
They could
it-
just circulate here, go
Right.
there.
Would it make it more circular for the people that drop off the kids?
They don't drop them off there.
Oh, they don't drop them off there?
No, they're waiting.
They're waiting, and most of the time it's in the afternoon.
Oh, they're
Right.
sitting there waiting.
They park there, they wait, they walk down in front of the school.
Yeah, so they get out of their cars, they
and
walk down and
back.
they pick up their child and walk
Okay,
back.
I got you.
Because if
I
you're,
thought it was a pickup drop-off. No.
if it's like most schools where there's a lot of parent pickup, if you're not there 3 minutes early, you're parking there.
The front of the Montessori school. If you're not
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
if you're not there 10
those
minutes
spots-
early, you're not parking
Yeah,
there.
those spots fill up very quickly, right. I
But
get it.
anyway, I'm just,
Yeah, so that's something we would certainly be willing to consider. My only concern is I'd prefer not to have to come back here if we decided to eliminate one, if you're okay with that, I could talk to staff and that's fine. Yeah.
Maybe, like I said, sit down with the Montessori people?
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe we'll let them decide how they want us to manage it.
people have gone over all of this.
We've talked to them, but it's a good point. Yeah,
I just thought from someone who uses it.
yeah, no.
Good point. Thank God you're helping out the grandchild. You're a good grandpa.
Helping out his father.
Any more questions from Mr. Helinski?
Yeah, I just have a couple of comments. Are you guys okay with adding a couple of conditions? The one where the engineering comments for the concrete sidewalks, the base should be increased from 6 inches of process aggregate to
Absolutely.
8 inches? Okay.
Yes.
And also the fire issue with the stone dust driveway?
Absolutely, yes.
Making sure, okay.
We want to have it read in as a memo or received July 11th.
If you, two site-specific.
So you don't have to read it all? or-
Yeah.
Yeah, just as set forth in those two memories, two site-specific conditions.
That was
Absolutely
received
fine.
July 11th? Is that,
Absolutely
Laura?
fine.
Mr. Chairman, what I was going to suggest is that we take the second and third comments from engineering and also the fire comments for conditions of approval per the July 11th, 2024 memo.
Okay. So he doesn't have to read it verbatim, he can just say.
Right, because just the first one was no concerns
Okay,
to this
yep.
change.
I was just
so
trying to
that's
make
not
it
a
easy.
condition.
He's wearing two hats tonight, so I
Yeah.
don't want him to have.
And the fire one, what did you say?
So just make the fire comment as a condition of approval. There was only one.
Memo dated.
Well, there's the boulder area and the 15-foot
Yeah.
wide, I think, are the
The,
two.
the entire memo.
Entire memo, so we just call it something.
Yeah.
Dated, memo
Memo from the
dated.
fire marshal dated
Additional
June
staff
11th to
comments
July
from
11th.
engineering and
Okay,
fire.
got it, got it.
Absolutely. We're
Okay.
perfectly fine with that.
Anything else? Walter, please.
To the traffic engineer, you don't have any pull with the state to get our traffic light at the high school, do you? That we were promised.
She did intern there.
Never heard that.
I've already emailed everyone I could, and without avail, so.
They do read all of the requests, I know that.
This has been I think, a 6-year effort on Walter's part, at least? Yeah. Okay, so at this time, I think we'll go open up to the public. Does anybody keep moving forward here? Okay, is there anyone in the public that would like to come up and speak for or against this application? Just consensus, 3 minutes, guys, 5 minutes? What do you want to do tonight?
I'm not going to take that long.
Let him go? Let it fly, okay. Good evening, name and address for the record, please.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Anne Marie Galdenzi, 1330 Enfield Street. I live directly across from the Felician Sisters. I'm glad to see the plan. It looks very nice. I have to thank Carl Landolini and the people from FSI and Community Builders that worked with us over the last few years. And we have come to this. The neighborhood that I've been working with have come, and most of us agree with this plan. We do have some concerns, but they're not major to stop it. So I'd like to thank them for working with us on this. It was greatly appreciated. I just would like to make one correction. Those pictures you saw of the view of the Felix House were not very well done. I've taken the pictures over the seasons myself, and I can see the Felix House all the time, except in the high density of the summer. But that's the only thing I saw that made something look different than what it really is. But that's all I have to say. I wish them the well with the project, and I'll be watching as it happens.
Thank you for all your input over the last few years, and appreciate you working with Attorney Landolina and his group to make this come to this point. Anybody else like to come speak? Good evening. Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. Nikki Price, 1324 Enfield Street. Overall, the project, in my mind, has come along from its initial concept to the current proposal. The proposed building and purpose is a much better fit for the historic district and the immediate neighborhood. The outcome is due to the mutual respect and common goals between FSI and the neighbors. My final question is, after reading online the structure of a ground lease agreement of a developer owning the building they build and the landowner, which is in this case between Community Builders and FSI. Depending on the terms of the agreement, when it ends, the building goes back to the landlord, a landowner, or at times the tenant involved with a long-term lease might require the building improvements be demolished. The tenants might have first option to buy the land. These are all concerns, and there's many others, but I just pointed out the major ones that I felt that was a concern. Now, in the past, when you did have concerns, such as the in-storage unit that you approved, you had great concerns about if there are going to be storage wars, if people are going to put their cars inside and do the mechanics. And Commissioner Gray asked the person who's building it if they would send the lease over to them so they can ensure that the lease agreement between the owner of the storage and the tenants that will be leasing have all these precautions in it. So these are concerns that need to be answered. Now, I was happy to hear that the traffic person from Fuss and O'Neill did, when they did the traffic study, because that was the question I had, was did the proposed building down the street, was that involved in it? And that was good. But the only thing is, when she was talking about trip generation, I didn't hear anything about Enfield Street School, because when the school's in session, it is quite a bit of traffic. Now, I also want to let you know that Anne Marie and I were talking, and right now, to this day, sometimes we cannot take a left out of our driveway. We have to take a right, go down Post Road, go around, and then go down if we want to go to Stop and Shop or that section of town. So yes, traffic is important. So thank you for listening to me, and I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all you did with working with the group. Appreciate that. Is there anyone else in the public that would come speak for or against this application? Anyone else in the public that'd like to come speak for or against the application? Anybody else in the public that'd like to come speak for or against the application? Seeing none, public participation is closed. Would the applicants like to come up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Carl Landolina for the record. So there will be a ground lease in place between the community builders and Felician Sisters. It's a 99-year lease, so it'll be in place for many, many years. I can't guarantee what's going to happen with my house 99 years from now, or this building, or any of your properties, but it is a long-term lease, 99 years. As far as the traffic, there was an actual count this time. It was done during the school year. I think one of the issues last time was whether the count was actually done during this while school was in session. So we've taken into account all existing conditions, including the Montessori School, Enfield High School, and Enfield Street School as well. All existing conditions were included in that count. So I think we've accounted for all of those things. So if anyone has any other questions, we'll be happy to answer them. But I think we're all set, and we appreciate your time.
Commissioner DeGray.
Just to clarify, the storage is actually, from what I'm understanding, is inside the St. Felix basement, right? So cars can't go driving into the storage areas.
Oh, God, no.
It's just small storage areas, so it's not like you can bring a car in there and do anything. So they're just, what are the exact size of the storage areas?
So it's a room that would have 3-foot by 5-foot storage areas for the residents to store other materials that they can't fit in their apartment.
That's all. That's what I thought, but I just wanted to clarify it because there was the question about storage.
Right there?
So,
correct.
all
That's
right.
it right there. Dan,
Okay.
total storage area.
All right, thank you.
Any more questions from any of the commissioners? Entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Move. So move.
Or is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by, motion made by Mr. Lynch, and seconded by, who seconded it?
Me.
Mr. Mueller. Oh,
There you go.
Commissioner Mueller.
Yes.
I thought she'd seen you. Oh, I thought you looked up. Commissioner Mueller seconded it, and
Yes.
Mr. Lynch made it. Okay, on the show of hands, and closing the public hearing. Public hearing is closed.
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Is there a motion to approve this application?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve public hearing number 3098, 1297 Enfield Street, application for a special use permit for elderly housing per section 4.40.3.K, Felician Sisters of North America Real Estate Trust, owners, applicants, map 46, lot 2, HR 33 zone, with the following 24 conditions attached, and an additional condition 25, containing the requirements of the July 11th memo from staff concerning engineering, sidewalk issues, and fire dust driveway issues.
Second. Seconded by Commissioner Muley. Okay, discussion. Any discussion? I'm going to be supporting this, and I want to thank everybody for all the work you guys did. I was here from the first round all the way up to now. I know it was a lot of hard work, and it was a lot of emotions, and I'm glad to see the community be able to come together, and hopefully this is a model going forward. If there's any issues like this that come up where the residents need to speak to the developer and developer speak to the resident, because I think it was a good model, because we've had some pretty contentious applications, in the 4 or 5 years, 5 years I've been here. So I'm definitely going to support this. There is a need, and you heard me earlier on our goals for more housing that's affordable so elderly can live in it. Hopefully you guys do in the future more of these for the elderly. We like to see our elderly be able to stay in our community. I think it's very stressful for them when it comes time to downsize, and it'd be a nice option. And like Attorney Landolina said, that we're way short. He knows the numbers. I don't know the exact numbers, but I do know there's a need, and I'm going to be supporting this. And I think we've come a long way, and I'm happy to see it concluded. Anybody else? Any more discussion, comments? Roll call vote. Oh, please, Mr. D'Antonio.
Yeah, I just want to tag along. I completely agree. That was very well said. I just wanted to add that this is a project that is supporting the town of Enfield, not just the historic district. So it's very welcome in the town. We're very glad to have you stay in town. Very glad to see you add needed housing to town. Very thoughtfully done. Frankly, I supported the original plan. We appreciate your patience and coming back and adjusting. So I want to thank you for, again, sticking with us. The benefit really is to the town. So that's what we're here to represent. And the whole town is winning with this. So again,
Definitely
thank you.
a need. Would anybody else like to add anything? Seeing none, there isn't any more comments. A roll call vote, please, Mr. Secretary, Vice Chair.
Okay. Terrence Lynch.
4.
Linda DeGray.
4.
Francis Alamo.
4.
Joseph Muley.
4.
Kenneth Alinsky is 4. Vinnie Grillo.
4.
Christian D'Antonio.
4.
Unanimous vote.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Been a long road. Good luck. Okay, we're going to move along. Everybody good?
We got more on the agenda.
Yep. Not much, we'll just go. Are you ready? You guys all set to keep going here? Okay. Old business. Number 15, any old business? Any new business? Any monkey business? No. Number 17, any other business?
Nope.
Okay, number 18, applications to be received.
We
Town
have two.
planner.
We have two this evening. Public hearing 3101 for 117 North Street. Application for a special use permit.
Carl's buying.
Application for a special use permit for excavation activities per section 8.40. Joseph LaCory, applicant owner, map 93, lot 15, and map 100, lot 6 in the I-1 zone. And public hearing 3102, 117 North Street. Application for a special use permit to allow a home occupation approval per section 4.50.5. Joseph LaCory, Applicant owner map 93, lot 15, I-1 zone. So this is part of moving forward with the stipulated judgment, and we have hired outside attorneys to be taking this case. So this was one of the requirements for them to move forward.
So I think we kind of went through this before, and I had a little agita with something being, if you see tonight on the attorney's report, these look like litigation. So
It is
explain to
litigation,
me
but it's
how they're
the-
coming before us if they're still in litigation.
Because it's part of the court case.
So the court
That
has
the-
ordered them
The court
to
has ordered them to do this.
Okay.
Okay.
I feel
Right.
more comfortable with that. Because it was a little funny the last time. When you're looking at, there's litigation and then they're here. So it's like, as long as it's
Same
ordered by the court
situation.
and our town attorney is good with it, sounds good to me. All right. Opportunities and unresolved issues. Any? No executive session?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Discussion?
All in favor?
We are adjourned.
10:36.